On the wedding night, the wife chooses to have a child for her first love. On the wedding night, my wife secretly went to the hospital with her first love to undergo IVF, all to fulfill the dying wish of his father. Wife, their womb is mine, and it's my right to choose who I have children for. So why bother with this marriage? Lee Ya, Uncle Zhao has watched me grow up. He is now suffering from a terminal illness, and the doctor says he has at most a year to live. His biggest wish is to hold his grandson. Tonight, I'm going to the hospital with Brother Zhao for IVF, and I didn't discuss it with you beforehand. Don't worry, it's just IVF, nothing more will happen. In the festive room, Lee Ya, dressed in a suit, sat on the large bed with red bedding, staring blankly into the air. The walls still hung the wedding photo of Lee Ya and Su Yunjin. Today was supposed to be their wedding night, but his wife, Su Yunjin, had sneaked off to the hospital with another man for IVF. The joyous occasion left Lee Ya alone in an empty new room. Perhaps to prevent him from making a scene, Su Yunjin had kept everything a secret, not even disclosing which hospital they went to, leaving Lee Ya with no chance to stop it. Sorry, the number you've dialed is unavailable. Lee Ya had lost count of how many times he tried to call, but every time, the result was the same: he had been blocked. With each passing moment, his heart grew colder, and by this point, it was completely dead. Now, as he dialed again, it was not to try to win Su Yunjin back, but because of his unwillingness to accept it. Ding! His phone suddenly lit up with a message from an unknown number. Lee Ji, don't worry. Yunjin is with me, and I'll take good care of her tonight. Nothing will happen. Next, he received a photo. In the photo, his new wife, Su Yunjin, was lying in a hospital bed, looking as beautiful as ever, even in a plain hospital gown, with a soft gaze directed at the camera. But Lee Ya knew that gaze wasn't meant for him, but for Zhao Qian, who was taking the photo. Lee Ya fell back onto the bed, staring up at the ceiling. Everything in the wedding room was carefully chosen by him, hoping to make it a warm and cozy home. In the past, whenever he imagined a warm home with Su Yunjin, his heart would race with excitement. But now, the soft bedding didn't bring him warmth, it brought an icy coldness instead. Memories of his time with Su Yunjin flooded his mind. They had met, fallen in love, and seemed like the perfect couple, admired by everyone. When did their relationship start to crack? It should have been after graduation, the same year Zhao Qian returned. At that time, Lee Ya found out Su Yunjin had a childhood sweetheart, Zhao Qian. Zhao Qian had gone abroad for college, and their youthful love never even had a chance to begin. From then on, Zhao Qian became Su Yunjin's first love, her white moonlight. After Zhao Qian returned, Su Yunjin's relationship with him quickly rekindled. She would travel with him under the guise of work, watch sunrises, cuddle on the beach at sunset, and even embrace and kiss beneath the southern lights. How did Lee Ya know? Zhao Qian would always send photos of himself with Su Yunjin to Lee Ya, either intentionally or unintentionally. Lee Ya had confronted Su Yunjin multiple times, but she always gave the same excuses. Stop being paranoid. If I wanted to be with Brother Zhao, I would have long ago. Why didn't I see that you're so unreasonable? Brother Zhao and I are just friends now. And so on. Finally, they held their wedding, and Lee Ya thought Zhao Qian would no longer be part of their lives. But on their wedding night, Su Yunjin went to the hospital with Zhao Qian for IVF. Ding-ling-ling. Suddenly, the phone rang. Lee Ya answered, and a familiar voice came through. Are you not coming home? Their voice was all too familiar to Lee Ya, for the man on the other end had asked him this every year since Lee Ya came of age. Lee Ya sneered. Why should I go back? Look at how well you're living now. Their voice on the other end paused before sighing. I'm afraid I won't be able to make this call next year. Lee Ya coldly retorted, good people don't live long, but you evil ones. You'll live forever. There was silence on the other end for a moment. 10 minutes later, Lee Ya asked, unsure, is your time really up? Stop joking. You've got the best doctors and the best medicine who could live longer than you. It's been 4 years, it's time to let go. I shouldn't have hidden your mother's death from you, but that was her decision, and it was a critical moment. The voice on the other end, usually commanding and resolute, now sounded unexpectedly sorrowful. Lee Ya snorted, but his tone was less cold. And even if you're angry with me, you should come back and see the last gift your mother prepared for you, right? The man on the other end dropped another bombshell, sensing Lee Ya's shifting mood. Lee Ya hesitated for a moment. You've always wanted to know the truth about your mother's death, right? I don't have time to investigate, but if you take over everything I have, you can investigate however you want. After a long pause, Lee Ya spoke through gritted teeth, send someone to pick me up tomorrow. Good. The call ended. Meanwhile, in a luxurious villa, a middle-aged man hung up the phone with a relaxed expression. The butler dared to speak up with concern, Sir, how is your health? Don't worry, I'm fine, the middle-aged man replied with a sly smile. The butler was momentarily stunned and asked, But sir, what you just told the young master? The middle-aged man grinned like a fox. HMPH, how else would I get our little dragon back into the family if I didn't use some tricks? The next day, Lee Ya was startled awake by the sound of the door opening, sitting up abruptly from the bed. He realized he had fallen asleep at some point last night, still wearing his wedding suit. At that moment, the door to the wedding room opened, and a man and a woman walked in. The man was gently stroking the woman's belly. Soo-Yun-jin's face was beaming with happiness as she turned to look at Lee Ya. Her expression briefly showed panic, but she quickly regained her composure. Still not asleep. Perfect, Zhao Ji and I have been busy all night and haven't eaten yet. Go make us some food, will you? Since they had started dating, Lee Ya had been making meals for Soo-Yun-jin every day, and now she had gotten used to giving him orders. Immediately, Zhao Qian scolded, Lee Ya, how are you taking care of Yun-jin? The doctor said Yun-jin's body isn't ready for IVF yet. We wasted a trip. You need to help Yun-jin get her health back in shape. We've already scheduled the next IVF. At these words, Lee Ya sneered. Then why not just skip the IVF and go straight to the bridal bed? The room is already set up, no need for you two to keep running around. How does that sound? Both Soo-Yun-jin and Zhao Qian froze, surprised by his suggestion. Lee Ya had always been cold to any man who got close to Soo-Yun-jin, but now he was suggesting they go straight to the wedding night. It made no sense. After a brief shock, Soo-Yun-jin snapped out of it and yelled at Lee Ya, do you even know what you're saying? We just got married yesterday, and today you say this. What do you think I am? Lee Ya patted his clothes, stood up tall, and coldly replied, it's just having a child. You yourself said it's to fulfill Uncle Zhao's dying wish. You can't even handle that. Then, his tone turned mocking. Besides, you, Soo-Yun-jin, went to the hospital with another man on our wedding night for IVF, and you expect me to treat you like a person. You should take a good look at yourself. Do you even deserve it? Chapter 2, Unattainable. Soo-Yun-jin widened her eyes, staring unblinkingly at Lee Ya, shocked that he was speaking to her in this tone. Hadn't Lee Ya always been obedient to her before? He wouldn't even utter a harsh word. Yet now, he dared to speak to her like this. After the shock, a wave of anger surged within Soo-Yun-jin. Lee Ya, I've already planned our wedding, and you're still throwing a tantrum, she said angrily. If you keep saying such insulting things, then we shouldn't get married. Soo-Yun-jin sat on the wedding bed, her face filled with anger. Then I really wouldn't mind at all. Lee Ya said indifferently. Soo-Yun-jin's face flashed with a brief moment of disbelief. Lee Ya, did you hear what I just said? Do you think I won't really go through with this marriage? I heard you loud and clear. Do you need me to clap for you? Lee Ya replied, and then, to her surprise, he actually raised his hand as if to applaud. Soo-Yun-jin was taken aback by Lee Ya's actions and froze in place, unsure of how to react. In the past, whenever she mentioned breaking up, it was always Lee Ya begging her with humility, but now, even when she said she might not marry him, Lee Ya remained unmoved. What was going on? Frustrated, Soo-Yun-jin yelled, leave. I never want to see you again. With that, she turned away, puffed up her cheeks, and gave him the cold shoulder. But her peripheral vision kept glancing at Lee Ya, her eyes silently pleading, come and comfort me. Lee Ya, however, simply walked straight to the door and opened it, ready to leave. Lee Ya, you're really going to leave? Just as Lee Ya placed one foot outside the door, Soo-Yun-jin's sharp voice came from behind, filled with fury, if you walk out that door today, we're getting a divorce. You'll never see me again. Lee Ya snorted and smiled. Then I really wouldn't mind at all. Also, Soo-Yun-jin, have you forgotten? We only had a wedding, but we haven't registered for marriage. So technically, you're not my wife. And I don't want to hear you referring to yourself as my wife outside. Besides, since you're planning on having children, getting married along the way isn't such a big deal, right? With that, Li Yue walked out of the door. From now on, you go your way, and I'll go mine. Li Yue. Who told you to really leave? Come back here. Seeing Li Yue actually ready to leave for good, Su Yunjin panicked. With a swift movement, she stood up from the wedding bed and rushed towards Li Yue. Zhao Qian, who had been quietly watching the drama unfold, felt quite pleased with himself, especially when he saw Li Yue going against Su Yunjin's wishes and leaving. His heart soared with joy. But when he saw Su Yunjin get up and run after him, Zhao Qian's expression changed and became grim. Although he didn't love Su Yunjin, the fact that she was leaving him to chase after a useless man like Li Yue made Zhao Qian feel humiliated. In the next second, Zhao Qian's face shifted, and he put on a polite and gentlemanly demeanor as he followed Su Yunjin out. By the time Zhao Qian and Su Yunjin reached the door, they only saw the elevator doors closing, then heard it rapidly descending to the first floor. The wedding apartment was a large flat that Su Yunjin and Li Yue had bought after working together in their company, and it was quite expensive. However, the building's high floor made the elevator slow. Even though Su Yunjin frantically pressed the button, the elevator still didn't arrive. Zhao Qian spoke in his gentlest tone, "Yunjin, don't worry. We both know how much Li Yue loves you. There's no way he'd really abandon you. He's just blowing off a little steam." Though it sounded like he was defending Li Yue, it was actually implying that Li Yue was just throwing a tantrum. This trick may not work on others, but Zhao Qian knew it was particularly effective on Su Yunjin. Sure enough, hearing this, Su Yunjin, who had just been upset that Li Yue was leaving her, immediately flared up and retorted, "What right does he have to throw a tantrum? I haven't done anything to wrong him." Meanwhile, Li Yue had already exited the door. After just a brief wait, a custom-made Rolls-Royce accurately stopped in front of Li Yue. Then, a middle-aged man with graying hair but an energetic appearance stepped out from the driver's seat. It was the butler from the phone call last night. The butler quickly approached, opened the door of the Rolls-Royce, bent down, and bowed respectfully, saying, "Young master, please get in." Li Yue ignored him, climbed into the car, sat upright, and only let half of his head appear through the car window. The butler also sat in the driver's seat, preparing to drive off. At this moment, Su Yunjin and Zhao Qian, who arrived late, saw this scene and stood frozen, stunned. Especially Su Yunjin. Since graduating from college, she and Li Yue had started a company together. Through their hard work, the company's market value had risen significantly. Li Yue, in particular, had used his handsome looks and eloquence to secure many big deals for the company. But Su Yunjin didn't want Li Yue to make a public appearance, so he had stayed at home to support her. Therefore, she knew exactly how much money Li Yue had. How could he afford to drive such an expensive custom-made Rolls-Royce? "Stop. Li Yue, if you leave today, we're really done for good." Su Yunjin quickly approached, grabbed the car window, and shouted angrily at Li Yue. "You're wrong about something. Since last night, we've already been done for." Li Yue sneered coldly. Su Yunjin stamped her foot in anger. "Li Yue, can't you be a little magnanimous? Uncle Zhao only had one wish before he died, to see a grandchild. What's wrong with me helping him fulfill that? And it's not like anything really happened. Why are you so petty, still holding on to this issue?" Li Yue didn't even spare her a glance. How had he never realized before that Su Yunjin was such a selfish person? It seemed that love really could blind one's eyes. "I advise you, let go of the car window," Li Yue said flatly. Su Yunjin thought he was concerned about her, worried she might hurt herself, and hoped he would change his mind. So, she dropped her hands, placed them on her hips, and resumed her proud posture, waiting to hear Li Yue apologize. But to her surprise, the next second, Li Yue coldly spat out one word, "Dirty." Buzz. As soon as the word was spoken, the car window immediately rose, blocking out all sound from the outside. Li Yue could only see Su Yunjin's mouth moving, but couldn't hear what she was saying. Though there was no need to guess, she was surely cursing him out. "Young master, may we depart now?" The butler's voice came from the driver's seat. "Let us go," Li Yue said, closing his eyes to rest in the back seat. Su Yunjin and Zhao Qian could only watch as the luxurious Rolls-Royce sped away, helpless to do anything. In the blink of an eye, the car's tail lights disappeared. Li Yue, you bastard! Even if you kneel and beg me, I won't forgive you this time. Su Yunjin shouted angrily at the departing car. At this moment, Zhao Qian gently held Su Yunjin's arm from behind, pulling her into his embrace and softly comforting her. Su Yunjin gritted her teeth, a bit uncertain, and asked, Zhao Ji, was I too much this time? Zhao Qian froze, noticing Su Yunjin seemed to be trying to regain control. He immediately began twisting the truth. Yunjin, there's no need to be upset over such a petty, narrow-minded person. People like him have dirty hearts, so everything they see is dirty. He could never understand our pure spiritual bond. Our child is the result of our transcendence beyond worldly views. Su Yunjin, who had been slightly swayed earlier, now began to regain her confidence, and she tilted back toward Zhao Qian's side. Yes, Zhao Ji, we are in a spiritual relationship, transcending the mundane and physical. This is the purest kind of love. Su Yunjin whispered. No one would believe this, but Su Yunjin did. On the other hand, after leaving the wedding house, the Rolls-Royce headed directly towards the mountains. There were few cars on the road, and by the end, there was only this one car. This was because the entire mountain ahead was private property. Yunding Mountain Villa. A private estate famous in Luocheng and even the whole of Tianzhu. The reason this estate was well known was not because of its luxury or scenery, but because it belonged to the Li family. The Li family, a 1,000-year-old noble family, descendants of royalty, and the leaders of a trillion-dollar commercial empire. In the grand and spacious living room of the Li family mansion, Li Chengyang, the head of the Li family and the ruler of the trillion-dollar empire, sat on the sofa, exuding majesty. Creak. The mansion door was pushed open, and Li Yue sat opposite Li Chengyang, with a sarcastic tone, still alive. Chapter 3 I Like You. Li Chengyang, who was originally somewhat dignified and domineering, unexpectedly showed a slightly flattering smile. Son, can I understand that this is your concern for Dad's health? Certainly. Li Yue said with a fake smile, after all, if you don't live well, how can you be struck by lightning? Li Chengyang looked resentful. Son, you're not even willing to lie to me a little. Har har, who can fool you? My mother is gone, and you have deceived the whole world for more than half a year. How can I believe what you say? There was a hint of gritted teeth in Li Yue's voice. When this matter was mentioned, Li Chengyang lowered his head unconsciously, like a child who had made a mistake. That period of time was exactly the critical moment for the survival of my Li family. If my Li family fell, how could the eggs under the overturned nest remain intact? And this was also your mother's own idea. There was a long silence between the two. Until Li Yue took the initiative to break the silence. What kind of force can make it so difficult for you and my mother to deal with it? You have to check it yourself. Li Chengyang said with a smile. Li Chengyang, damn it, don't tell me that after all these years, you don't even know who the person who fought with you was. Li Yue's forehead was bulging with veins. Li Chengyang smiled awkwardly and said, my ability is limited. After all, compared to you, my precious son, what is my IQ? After the father flattered his son, seeing that Li Yue's face was not bad, Li Chengyang continued, I can't find out, because my every move is being watched by countless eyes. You don't know that I tried every possible way to get this absolutely safe time in Genting Villa. But you are different. You are currently out of everyone's sight. The power of the Li family will become your sharpest knife. But before that, you have to get the approval of this knife. Go fight for the family property. The power of the Li family will exceed your imagination. Li Yue shook his head and said, I'm not interested. I came back this time because I heard that my mother left a gift for me. I took the gift and left. Hearing this, Li Chengyang did not dwell on it too much, but continued, your mother left 2 gifts for you. First, it's a marriage certificate. The other party is the most beautiful woman in Tianzhu. Son, you will definitely not suffer any loss. The second one is the first company your mother founded. It is located in Los Angeles. This is your mother's hard work. After saying this, Li Chengyang laughed like a 1,000-year-old fox. The more Li Yue thought about it, the more he felt something was wrong. He frowned and pondered. When he figured it out, he stood up and shouted angrily, Li Chengyang, you bastard! Are you setting a trap for me? If I accept this company, no matter if I admit it or not, everyone will assume that I am back to fight for the family property. How can you trick your son like this? Li Chengyarn said leisurely, just tell me whether you want it or not. If you don't want it, this company might be taken away by someone else in the future. Li Ye could only grit his teeth and agree, I can have the company, but I won't agree to the marriage proposal. You must know everything that happened in Luocheng. I don't want to get married now. Li Chengyang's face darkened when he heard this. Los Angeles' affairs are on my desk every day. The reason why your wife's company, which has not obtained a marriage certificate, has grown like a rocket in this year is that the Li family has been feeding her. Now it seems that this business is a loss, but the Li family never does business at a loss. If you lose money, you can make it back from her yourself. As for the engagement, you can ask me for help, but you can deal with your fiancé yourself. Just when Li Ye wanted to say something, Li Chengyarn had already stood up from the sofa and left without looking back. The time I have fought for is up, I have to go, you can go to the company yourself. Soon, Li Ye was the only one left in Genting Highlands, along with a Rolls-Royce that took him back to the city center. Li Ye got into the car angrily and said unhappily, let's go to the Luocean Group headquarters building. Luocean Group is the company that Li Ye's mother left to him. At the same time, Luocean Group, headquarters building, top floor office. President Xiao Yudi sat behind a large desk. She had not touched any of the documents that she was supposed to have been working on since this morning, and she kept staring at the clock on the wall. She just received a notice this morning that from now on, the young master will be in charge of the company personally. Luocean Group is just a company developed in Luocheng. It may be a behemoth to Luocheng, but to the entire Tianzhu, it is just a few cats. However, as the president of Luocean Group, only Xiao Yudi knew that behind the Luocean Group there was a Li family that was powerful enough to make the entire Tianzhu tremble and was protecting the Luocean Group. The young master who came today is not only the young master of Luocean Group, but also the young master of Li family. This made Xiao Yudi, who had been in the business world for many years and had experienced many battles, feel uneasy. Ding-ling-ling. Just then, the group's internal phone rang. After the call is connected. Boss, someone at the front desk is looking for you. At this moment, Xiao Yudi's heart was pounding. She deliberately turned down all business arrangements, but someone still came to see her at this time. It must be the young master. Please bring the person in. Xiao Yudi put on her professional attire, stood up from her desk, and stood behind the office door ready to greet him. After a while, a young man pushed the door open from outside. The young man in front of me has handsome features and an upright figure. Young master? Xiao Yudi asked tentatively. Li Ye sat directly on the sofa in the office. My name is Li Ye, not young master. At this time, Xiao Yudi finally confirmed that the person in front of her was the young master she had been waiting for all morning. Although I was prepared that the young master would be a young man, I didn't expect him to be so young, as if he had just graduated from college. While Xiao Yudi was secretly observing Li Ye was also looking at Xiao Yudi carefully. Her long black hair cascaded down like a waterfall, her facial features were delicate, her white shirt was bulging with her breasts, her waist was slender, outlining her perky buttocks, her straight beautiful legs were wrapped in black stockings, and she was wearing a pair of black stockings and red-soled high heels. She is indeed a famous beauty president in Los Angeles. Li Ye had heard of Xiao Yudi's reputation before, but at that time he didn't know that Luocean Group was left by his mother. The most important thing is that Luocean Group has always been the largest client of Su Yunjin's Jinxiu company. Just as Xiao Yudi was feeling anxious, Li Ye's voice finally rang out, how is the profit from the business between the group and Jinxiu company? Xiao Yudi was stunned for a moment, then quickly recalled the information about Jinxiu company in her mind and replied, young master, the group has basically no profit from Jinxiu company's business. Many business quotes are lower than the market price, and the group even needs to pay for it. The cooperation with Jinxiu company was ordered by the Li family. Even though Xiao Yudi felt that it was unnecessary, she did not dare to disobey and could only do as she was told. Li Ye, since it's not profitable, then stop it. The group is big, but there's no need to support a vampire. Any questions? Since you have been passively involved in the battle for the Li family's property, you should take the initiative and develop your strength to the maximum before anyone notices. Xiao Yudi immediately said, no problem. When we started working together, the contract between the group and Jinxiu company stipulated that we could terminate the cooperation at any time without paying liquidated damages. This is one of the reasons why the group is willing to cooperate with Jinshu Company at a price lower than the market price. In just a few words, Xiao Yudi demonstrated her professionalism and made reasonable use of the provisions of the contract. Li Yue nodded in satisfaction, thinking that Xiao Yudi was quite useful, and said, "You are in full control of the arrangements. You will be in charge of the daily operations of the company. I will not interfere, but when I make a request, you must fully cooperate. I will follow the young master's orders," Xiao Yudi said respectfully. Li Yue was too lazy to correct Xiao Yudi's address, so he stood up and left. Xiao Yudi was about to personally escort Li Yue out of the company, but was stopped by Li Yue before leaving the office. Li Yue walked out of the top-floor office and walked through the long corridor to the elevator. Just as he was about to step out, a bouquet of roses suddenly appeared in front of Li Yue. A man knelt on one knee, holding a rose in his hand, and said affectionately, "I love you." Chapter 4, Foot Fetish. Because the bouquet of roses was too big, the man knelt on one knee and looked up from below, but could not see Li Yue at all. But this entire top floor is the president's office. The man subconsciously thought that who else could the person who walked out of the president's office be other than Xiao Yudi? But there was no response for a long time, which made the man curious. Why didn't Xiao Yudi move at all this time? Could it be that Xiao Yudi was so moved by the surprise she prepared that she was speechless? Thinking of this, the man was secretly delighted. He was about to bend down to take the engagement diamond ring, but happened to see Li Yue's shoes. Then he realized something was wrong. He put the roses aside and saw Li Yue's condescending eyes looking at him like a mentally retarded person. "Who are you? How did you come out of Xiao Yudi's office? Are you here to steal something with bad intentions?" the man asked coldly. When the man thought about how he had just knelt down and confessed his love to a man, his face became very gloomy and he felt that he had lost face. Li Yue said coldly, "What does this have to do with you? I came to find Xiao Yudi for a reason. Also, before asking someone who they are, shouldn't you introduce yourself first? And you're not wearing Luotian Group's clothes, so who are you?" The man stood up, straightened his high-end custom-made suit, and said disdainfully, "Even I don't know, I really don't know where this country bumpkin came from. Remember, my name is Zhu Jiwei. Have you heard of the Zhu family that cooperates with Luotian Group? I am the eldest son of the Zhu family. You can get out of Luotian Group now. From now on, you don't have to come to work." Zhu Jiwei acted bossy, as if he was the owner of Luotian Group. "Young master of the Zhu family. Why don't you play your house games in the Zhu family? Instead, you dare to run to the Luotian Group to give orders. Who gives you the courage?" Li Yue snorted coldly. Zhu Jiwei said disdainfully, "It's more than enough to deal with a little scoundrel like you. My Zhu family is the most powerful partner of Luotian Group. Who dares to stop me if I ask Luotian Group to fire you? Even Xiao Yudi has to give me some face." "Oh? Really? Then I'd like to hear Xiao Yudi's explanation." Li Yue turned around and walked back to the office door. He pushed open the door and Xiao Yudi, who was sitting behind the desk, immediately sat up straight with a sweet smile on her face. "Young master? Is there anything else you need me to do?" "Nothing, it's just that there's a pig out there who said that everyone in Luotian Group has to listen to him, and even you have to give him some face, so I came to verify whether you know about this matter." Li Yue had a playful smile on his face, but the smile did not reach his eyes. "Base." Xiao Yudi suddenly stood up from her desk, ran to Li Yue with a serious face, bowed and said, "I will definitely give the young master a satisfactory answer." Then, Xiao Yudi pushed the door open with a cold expression. Zhu Jiwei saw Xiao Yudi coming out and asked, "President Xiao, are all the employees of your company so rude? My Zhu family has deep cooperation with your group after all, but now someone is insulting our Zhu family. I need an explanation for this matter." Xiao Yudi laughed in anger. "Explanation? What explanation do you need?" In Zhu Jiwei's eyes, Xiao Yudi's smile turned into a flattering one, and he said, "Of course, if President Xiao is willing to have dinner with me tonight and spend a good night together, I will not pursue this matter. Otherwise, President Xiao will bear the consequences at your own risk. I have been pursuing Xiao Yudi for such a long time, but Xiao Yudi has always been rude to me. This time I finally got hold of something that could hold me back, and I must take advantage of the opportunity to get a hold of this woman." Unexpectedly, Xiao Yudi sneered and said, "It is you, the Zhu family, who will bear the consequences." "What do you mean?" Zhu Jiwei asked back with a frown. Xiao Yudi walked back to the office in her high heels, picked up a thick document from the table, and walked out again, throwing it rudely at Zhu Jiwei's face. Take a good look. Over the past year, the materials provided by your Zhu family have been inferior, you have colluded maliciously, you have taken kickbacks, and you have issued false invoices. I have not yet settled all these accounts with you. From today on, Luotian Group announces the termination of its partnership with your Zhu family and demands compensation of 1 billion. Zhu Jiwei stared blankly at the investigation results on the document, his face full of disbelief. He had done all this perfectly, how could Xiao Yudi have discovered it? Zhu Jiwei said angrily, you said you want to terminate the cooperation. What rights do you have as a bitch like you, Xiao Yudi? What rights do I have? Xiao Yudi sneered, took out her phone and dialed, saying coldly, immediately sever the cooperation with the Zhu family and investigate the account books and contracts. After a while, Zhu Jiwei's phone rang suddenly, and the ringing sound was like a death warrant. Zhu Jiwei swallowed and comforted himself. How could it be possible that something went wrong on his side just after Xiao Yudi gave the order? Then the call was connected and an anxious voice came from the phone. Master, this is bad. The top accounting team of Luotian Group suddenly seized our account books and found evidence of our fraudulent accounting in just 3 minutes. And their team of top lawyers prosecuted us, with the highest sentence being 20 years in prison. Master, you must save me. I am only doing what you told me to do. I don't want to go to jail. The man's voice pleaded, but Zhu Jiwei quickly hung up the phone as if he had received a hot potato. A chill rose from his heart, and the look he gave Xiao Yudi was no longer the same fascination as before, but deep fear. President Xiao, I know I was wrong. Please give me another chance. I will never dare to fool you again. Zhu Jiwei begged bitterly. Xiao Yudi's aura was fully revealed, and she acted decisively. You should go back and wait for the lawsuit from Luotian Group. When Zhu Jiwei knew that Xiao Yudi refused to give in, he just gave up. He was filled with anger and rushed forward to knock Xiao Yudi down, still roaring. You stinky bitch, why don't you let me go? Why do you have to force me to death? Even if I die, I will take you with me. His expression was so ferocious that Xiao Yudi was startled. Xiao Yudi didn't expect that Zhu Jiwei would actually drag her down with him when he was about to die. She stepped back in a hurry to dodge, but her foot twisted and she fell to the ground. Just as Zhu Jiwei was about to pounce, suddenly a tall figure blocked Xiao Yudi's way. It's Li Huaye. At the critical moment, Li Huaye kicked Zhu Jiwei in the chest, sending him flying and hitting the wall heavily. Zhu Jiwei's body went limp and he fainted. Send someone to throw him out, and don't let this kind of messy people in the future. Li Huaye said. Xiao Yudi's heart was pounding, and she was still immersed in the strong sense of security she had felt when Li Huaye stood in front of her just now. After a long time, he responded, Young master, I will arrange it right away. As she was about to stand up, she suddenly felt a sharp pain in her foot, which made her lose her balance. She screamed and staggered into Li Huaye's arms. Li Huaye looked at Xiao Yudi's ankle and said, It must have been twisted just now. I'll take you back to the office. After saying that, without waiting for Xiao Yudi to respond, he picked her up like a princess and put her on the sofa. Xiao Yudi buried her pretty face in her hair, her face flushed with shame, but there was even a hint of secret joy in her eyes. Then, Li Huaye put Xiao Yudi on the sofa. While Xiao Yudi was still in a daze, she suddenly felt her shoes being taken off, and a pair of large hands grabbed her ankles and began to squeeze them. Xiao Yudi's pretty face burned hot and she couldn't help but let out a cry. Li Huaye's actions did not hurt, but were very comfortable. However, no man had ever touched her feet before, which made Xiao Yudi feel strange. Okay. When Li Huaye saw that Xiao Yudi's ankle had subsided, he put it down, stood up and went into the office's dedicated bathroom to wash his hands. There was the sound of running water in the bathroom. Xiao Yudi's eyes were somewhat resentful. Are you disgusted by your smelly feet? How is that possible? I wash myself every day. I use the best shower gel and skin care products. Some people with strange fetishes want me to put my feet in their mouths. Thinking of this, Xiao Yudi looked vaguely at her slender legs and exquisite feet wrapped in black stockings. So when Li Huaye came out of the bathroom, he just happened to see the aloof female CEO of the Luotian Group, holding his feet close to her nose and sniffing. Chapter 5 Worse Than Beasts. Li Huaye was stunned. He didn't expect that beautiful women nowadays all have this kind of hobby. But I have to say that Xiao Yudi is definitely a natural beauty. The pair of long legs in black silk stockings were curled up on the sofa at the moment, full of the temptation of mature charm. The most important thing is that Xiao Yudi was completely unaware that her current posture in her hip skirt was really quite hot. Well, don't misunderstand. Xiao Yudi, who was lying on the sofa, also reacted at this time and quickly pressed her legs under her body, feeling helpless for a moment. She didn't expect that her subconscious embarrassment would be caught by Li Ya. Xiao Yudi felt a little flustered, and a rare blush flashed across her cheeks. As the famous female president of Luotian Group, her external image has always been capable, decisive and cold as an iceberg. But I didn't expect that today was the first time I met the young master, and it would turn out like this. At this moment, Xiao Yudi wished she could find a crack in the ground to crawl into. Li Ya's breathing was also a little rapid. Xiao Yudi's appearance was absolutely stunning. At this moment, she was leaning on the sofa with her beautiful legs bent in front of her. The tight skirt outlined her figure perfectly. The hair on her forehead drooped slightly, her eyebrows were lowered, and she was a little flustered and did not dare to look at Li Ya, but this time she looked even more charming and attractive. Contrast is most attractive. Xiao Yudi, an iceberg female president, showed such a charming attitude at this moment, which was simply fatally attractive. Li Ya had to admit that the woman in front of him was definitely much better than Su Yunjin, whom he had been thinking about before. Don't worry, I'm not a rigid person. It's inevitable that people will have some special habits in life. I can understand this, and I won't say anything casually. As he spoke, Li Ya gave Xiao Yudi a very trusting look. It's over. The sky is falling. This lady's lifelong reputation. Xiao Yudi really wanted to throw a pillow at Li Ya's head and question him. Do I look like a pervert? What is a special hobby? Do you understand it? You can walk now, right? If there's nothing else, I'll leave now. I'll leave the company's affairs to you. Come back to me if you have any questions. Ignoring Xiao Yudi, who was about to go crazy, Li Ya wiped his hands and prepared to leave. After all, I am a young man full of vigor and vitality. This erotic scene really makes people feel dry in the mouth. Xiao Yudi, who was sitting on the sofa, was stunned when she heard this, and couldn't help but look up at Li Ya. She thought Li Ya would take the opportunity to make fun of her for her somewhat indecent behavior just now, but she didn't expect that he would look so calm. Is there something wrong with my outfit today? Why is this guy's eye so calm towards me? Are you leaving now? Xiao Yudi regretted saying this the moment she said it, her heart pounding like a stumbling deer. Xiao Yudi has never been an active woman, not to mention that she is in this position, with countless outstanding suitors of the opposite sex around her. But she never took anyone seriously, but today, for some reason, she felt like her heart skipped a beat after seeing Li Ya. Seeing that Li Ya was really planning to turn around and leave, he couldn't help but blurt out something to keep him. After saying this, Xiao Yudi lowered her head, wishing she could bury it in her towering breasts and not dare to look Li Ya in the eye. Isn't there anything the company needs me for right now? Just handle it yourself. Hearing Li Ya's somewhat cold voice, Xiao Yudi felt a little lost for a moment. Although she also hated those men whose eyes lit up when they saw her, this was the first time she met a gentleman like Li Ya. After all, she is the most beautiful woman in Los Angeles. Any normal man would probably not be able to help but come over in such a situation. Ouch! That hurts. But just as Li Ya was about to turn the doorknob, he suddenly heard a scream coming from the sofa. Miss Xiao, what's wrong with you? When Li Ya turned around, he saw Xiao Yudi, who was blushing just now lying on the sofa holding her long black silk legs, unable to move, her pretty face full of pain. I have a leg cramp. Xiao Yudi really wanted to die this time. I just subconsciously brought the beautiful feet in black stockings to the tip of my nose. My body is very flexible, so there is no problem. But this time, for some reason, his calf suddenly cramped, and he was frightened by Li Ya, who came out of the bathroom, so his cramped leg was bent on the sofa for a long time. She hadn't noticed it just now, but now when she raised her leg, she suddenly felt a sharp pain, causing Xiao Yudi to gasp for air. Li Ya couldn't help rubbing his brows. He really couldn't understand how this stupid woman became the female president of Luotian Group. But the other party is his subordinate after all, so he can't just sit back and do nothing. Returning to the sofa, Li Yue slowly placed Xiao Yudi's long black silk legs on his legs and stretched them out. I have to say that the long legs of the female president of Luotian Group are really desirable, especially under the thin black stockings, they are extremely tempting. No, don't move tilde. Xiao Yudi's cramped leg was suddenly stretched out by Li Yue so directly that she felt extremely sore and couldn't help but let out a moan. She hurriedly wanted to reach out to help Li Yue, but the pain in her legs made Xiao Yudi feel weak all over. She could only collapse on the sofa, gasping for breath. You, please be gentle, I can't stand it. Xiao Yudi was too shy to speak loudly, and her voice was as soft as a mosquito. Stop talking. Li Yue really wanted to cover Xiao Yudi's mouth. Who can resist such temptation? I just want to lend a helping hand, how can I live like this? Feeling the blood and energy in his body surging, Li Yue could only recite the calming technique silently in his mind. Over the years, whenever Li Yue's heart was filled with resentment and anger, he would silently recite the calming mind technique to calm himself down. I didn't expect it to come in handy at this moment. Li Yue stretched out his hands and placed them on Xiao Yudi's calves and thighs, and began massaging them continuously to help stretch her meridians. Xiao Yudi had already wrinkled her clothes. She had never thought that she could be so close to the opposite sex. What's more, we only met once. Today, not only did Li Yue pinch her jade feet, but now even her long legs could not escape his grasp. The scorching heat from Li Yue's palm and the pain from cramps made Xiao Yudi gasp for breath. The ice is cold for thousands of years, and all things are still. My heart is at peace, and I look to me for my own godliness. This scene made Li Yue's blood and energy churn continuously. He could only close his eyes tightly and recite the calming mind technique silently. Li Yue even covered his ears directly, otherwise the lewd music would be really disturbing. After blocking the five senses, the qi and blood in the body calmed down a lot. Normally, Li Yue doesn't dare to block his five senses. After all, it is very dangerous to have no perception. But in this situation, if we don't do this, it might be more dangerous. Xiao Yudi heard Li Yue's murmurs and felt the changes in Li Yue at this moment. There was some surprise in her beautiful eyes. She didn't expect that she, the young master, had such strong self-control. As a female president who is well versed in the business world, she has seen all kinds of people. She had also heard about the romantic affairs of those wealthy and dissolute young masters. I have never heard of any rich young master who would recite the calming sutra to remain calm at a time like this. This made Xiao Yudi shy, but also curious about Li Yue. After Li Yue's kneading, Xiao Yudi's cramped legs finally recovered. But at this moment, her whole body was wet with sweat, her face was flushed and there were a few drops of sweat on the tip of her nose. After Li Yue's blocked senses were lifted, he opened his eyes and almost had a nosebleed. Any normal man would not tolerate this situation. He quickly stood up and walked quickly towards the door, fearing that he would lose control if he stayed any longer. Xiao Yudi, feeling powerless all over, felt mixed emotions for a moment. Just now her heart almost jumped into her throat, fearing that Li Yue would do something out of line. After all, the situation just now was so ambiguous, and coupled with the identity and status of the other party's young master, if he really did something beastly, I'm afraid I wouldn't be able to stop it. But Li Yue actually turned around and left. Isn't this worse than animals? Chapter 6. Does the company have dormitories? Women's train of thought is sometimes so strange. They don't want the other party to be too proactive, but they also don't want the other party to ignore them. Now, after experiencing such an ambiguous situation, Xiao Yudi felt a little empty in her heart when she saw Li Yue turned around and left. Li Yue ran out of the office and went directly to the public restroom to wash the sweat off his hands. The extremely erotic scene just now almost made him unable to control himself. Fortunately, I had just experienced a broken relationship, and I had been silently reciting the meditation technique to suppress the impulse in my heart. This woman is simply a witch. Li Yue, who had just left Luotian Group, suddenly heard his cell phone ring. Seeing the words, "Dear wife," on the caller ID, the smile on Li Yue's face disappeared instantly. The energy and blood that had been a little agitated just now calmed down instantly, and I felt extremely nauseous in my heart. I was once completely devoted to that woman. For her, I would give up everything and even a promising career. But in the end it was just my wishful thinking. Li Yue sneered and deleted the note, and at the same time added the other party to the blacklist. I wasted my feelings on such a person. I was really blind all those years. But soon another unfamiliar phone call came in. Li Yue only took a glance and recognized that it was Zhao Qian'an's call. He hung up again without hesitation. He never wanted to see this couple again. If Li Yue still held a glimmer of hope for Su Yunjin before the marriage, what happened on the wedding night had completely cut off all his thoughts. Li Yue has never been an indecisive person, but this relationship has made him confused. A wise man does not fall in love, and Su Yunjin has now kicked him out of love with his own hands. After waking up, Li Yue regained his original composure and indifference. Buzz buzz buzz. Li Yue didn't want to hear the phone ringing, so he simply set it to vibrate. But he didn't expect the phone to keep vibrating after he hung up the call. This time the caller ID showed another unfamiliar number. Li Yue frowned and picked up the phone. As soon as the call was connected, Su Yunjin's anxious voice came from the other end. Li Yue. Where did you go? What do you mean by abandoning me and running away? We've already had our wedding, even though we haven't gotten the marriage certificate. Do you really want to break up with me? Li Yue, you are already so old, why are you still acting like a child? Can you be more mature like a man? Su Yunjin's tone on the other end of the phone was full of complaints. Li Yue did not return home for a long time after leaving, which made Su Yunjin, who was used to being taken care of by Li Yue, a little uncomfortable. Li Yue found it ridiculous to hear Su Yunjin's words. Su Yunjin was trying to put the blame on himself in every word. Su Yunjin, don't you understand what I'm saying? You and I have nothing to do with each other anymore. Don't bother me anymore. After saying that, Li Yue was about to hang up the phone, but at this time, Su Yunjin's somewhat anxious voice came from the other end. Li Yue. Something happened at Jinxiu Company. Luotian Group unilaterally terminated the contract, and Jinxiu Company's stock price plummeted. Many partners terminated their contracts almost at the same time. We built this company together. Are you going to watch it go bankrupt? Hearing Su Yunjin's words, Li Yue stood there in a daze. Once upon a time, he was full of ambition and wanted to fight for his beloved woman. Unfortunately, these are all wishful thinking. Su Yunjin now just wants to make use of his surplus value. This is your own fault. It has nothing to do with me. Besides, haven't you always claimed to be a strong woman? Haven't you always told me that Jinxiu Company has been able to get to where it is today because of you? Why are you looking for me now? A cold light flashed in Li Yue's eyes. When he first founded Jinxiu Company, he basically relied on himself to negotiate various business matters. Later, Jinxiu Company was able to reach where it is today and become a well-known company in Luocheng, all thanks to the full support of Luotian Group. But later, in order to take better care of Su Yunjin, Li Yue was willing to give up his career. But Su Yunjin did not appreciate it, and even attributed all the achievements of Jinxiu Company to herself. Being decisively rejected by Li Yue, a hint of panic flashed across Su Yunjin's eyes. Jinxiu Company has been almost smooth sailing all their way, and Su Yunjin has never experienced any setbacks at all. This time, she was suddenly faced with such a big change that she was completely confused for a moment. Li Yue, could you please stop being so childish? This is not just a matter of anger between the two of us, it concerns the entire Jinxiu Company. I've said it before, Jinxiu Company has nothing to do with me. After saying that, Li Yue hung up the phone. Su Yunjin was so angry that she stomped her feet while holding the phone. At this time, Zhao Qian, who was beside Su Yunjin, immediately took her into his arms and said gently, "Don't worry, just leave this little thing to me. Isn't it just that the cooperation with Jinxiu Company encountered some problems? Our Zhao family will help you through the difficulties. In addition, our Zhao family has some partners in Luocheng. If my father comes forward, I believe these problems can be solved." Hearing what Zhao Qianan said, Su Yunjin felt as if she had taken a reassurance pill, and leaned in Zhao Qianan's arms with a gentle look on her face. "Brother Zhao, I'll have to ask you to take care of this matter." Zhao Qian scratched Su Yunjin's nose lovingly. "Don't worry, I am the top leader of the Zhao family now, this matter is nothing. I just didn't expect that Li Yue would be so heartless." He ignored such a big incident at Jinxiu Company. While Zhao Qianan was coaxing Su Yunjin, he did not forget to step on Li Yue. "Yunjin, you've suffered so much during the time I wasn't around. You actually met this irresponsible pretty boy. Don't worry, I'm back. As long as I'm here, I won't let your Jinxiu company suffer any harm. Su Yunjin nodded with admiration in her eyes. She hugged Zhao Qianan very naturally, completely forgetting that she had just had her wedding with Li Yue yesterday. Li Yue, who hung up the phone, didn't know that he, who founded Jinxiu Company, had become a lazy gigolo in Su Yunjin's heart. Looking at the Rolls-Royce on the side of the road, Li Yue frowned. Luotian Group has taken over, and their wedding with Su Yunjin, which did not have a marriage certificate, is completely over. The Jinxiu Company, which could only suck blood, was kicked away by himself, but there was still a big problem next. Where do I live? It is impossible to go back to my original home, and I feel extremely disgusted with everything in the past. It's even more impossible to move back and live with the old man. But all the old man has left for him now is the Luotian Group and a customized Rolls-Royce. I can't sleep in the car. Just then, the crisp sound of high heels stepping on the ground came from behind. Li Yue turned around and found that it was Xiao Yudi who had changed her clothes and was limping towards the parking lot. There was still a red mark on her face that had not yet completely faded. Young master. As soon as Xiao Yudi saw Li Yue, she recalled the ambiguity between them in the office before, and quickly lowered her head and bit her red lips with her pearly teeth. Li Yue couldn't help but frown when he saw Xiao Yudi walking. What's wrong with your foot? Wasn't it healed just now? Why are you limping again now? Hearing Li Yue's words, Xiao Yudi's face instantly turned red with embarrassment. Her ankle was indeed healed, but after Li Yue's painful massage, her whole body felt sore and weak. My body hasn't recovered yet, so I limp a little when I walk. But she couldn't bear to say such words. Forget it, you can't drive like this, I'll just take you back. Seeing Xiao Yudi like this, Li Yue shook his head helplessly. Li Yue has no intention of intervening in the company's current situation, and Xiao Yudi, as the female president of the group, is undoubtedly his most important assistant at present. Li Yue didn't want anything to happen to the woman in front of him. When Xiao Yudi heard what Li Yue said, she wanted to refuse, but somehow she agreed and sat directly in the passenger seat of the Rolls-Royce. Where do you live? It's in Yunhu in Gaocheng District. Yunhu is the most upscale villa community in Los Angeles. Everyone who lives there is either rich or noble, and the cheapest villa costs tens of millions. When Li Yue was in love with Su Yunjin, he had also dreamed of making Jinxiu Company bigger and stronger, and one day he would be able to own a house in Yunhu. By the way, does Luotian Group have employee dormitories? Chapter 7: The Female CEO Cooking. Xiao Yudi? After hearing Li Yue's unreasonable words, Xiao Yudi was stunned for a moment, wondering what the young master meant. Ahem, young master, you can rest assured. Our Luotian Group has never skimped on employee benefits. From management to ordinary employees, our group has dormitories and housing subsidies to choose from. Xiao Yudi thought that Li Yue was a new official and wanted to check the company's internal finances, so she did not dare to hide anything and reported everything in detail. Li Yue was delighted when he heard this, as his accommodation problem was now solved. As for the dormitory environment, Li Yue didn't care. He even slept in the park in the early days of his business. He was willing to have a place to sleep that was sheltered from the wind and rain. As a member of the company, do I also have a dormitory? Young master, you are joking. You are the one in charge of our company, so of course you have your own dormitory. Xiao Yudi is now completely confused by Li Yue. As a female president who is well versed in the business world, she finds that she really can't figure out what this young master is thinking. Can I ask where my dormitory is? Li Yue asked. You are the young master, so of course you need the best accommodation, right here at Yunhu. Li Yue was stunned. He didn't expect such a coincidence. Young master, you may not know that Yunhu is actually one of the projects invested by our Luotian Group. Our company also has shares in this real estate. Several of these villas are under the name of our Luotian Group. They can be used to solve the problem of high-level accommodation and to receive business partners. It's just that there is no place for them at the moment. Senior management basically has their own house. Li Yue nodded when he heard this. The Luotian Group is definitely a giant in Luocheng. It is basically involved in real estate, finance and other industries. However, he didn't notice that Xiao Yudi's expression was a little strange at the moment as he was driving. Yunhu is located in the wealthy area of Los Angeles, some distance from the city center. The customized Rolls-Royce slowly drove away from the bustling city center under the night sky. The surrounding streets gradually became very quiet, and the flickering lights kept shining on Li Yue's face. Xiao Yudi, who was sitting in the passenger seat, glanced at Li Yue, and for a moment, ripples arose in her heart. Soon the car drove into Yanhuiyuan. There are rivers, lakes and many lush forests in the community. Most of the villas are about 3 or 4 stories high, scattered in the area. It looks more like a natural scenic spot than a residential area. Under Xiao Yudi's guidance, Li Yue drove to a 3-story villa. "Young master, this is your villa." As she spoke, Xiao Yudi took out the key to the villa from her limited edition backpack. Li Yue vaguely felt that something was wrong, but without thinking too much, he parked the car in the garage. Standing in front of the door of the villa, Li Yue found that Xiao Yudi had not opened the door for a long time, and her expression seemed hesitant and conflicted, which made him feel a little confused. Li Yue took the key from Xiao Yudi and opened the door directly, but after turning on the light, he stood there in a daze. There were a few pairs of women's high-heeled shoes at the door, and the furnishings and furniture in the house were obviously often occupied. Looking at Xiao Yudi standing beside him with a blushing face, Li Yue finally reacted. It turned out that Xiao Yudi had been living in his staff dormitory before. No wonder he always felt that the other person's expression was a little strange along the way. "I'm sorry, young master. Before you came, I was the top person in charge of the group in Los Angeles, so I have always lived in this villa. I didn't expect that you would also." Xiao Yudi stood at the door, feeling a little at a loss. Li Yue was a little embarrassed for a moment. He didn't expect that the place he had finally gotten to live in would turn out to be someone else's boudoir. "Young master, I'll pack my things and move out right away. Don't worry, it won't affect you. After all, she is a well-known female president in Los Angeles. Xiao Yudi is very capable in her daily life." She quickly adjusted her mood and prepared to go into their house to pack up and move out. "No, I'll just find another place to live." Li Yue stopped her quickly. It was already dark, and it was somewhat unkind to let a girl carry the luggage and find a new place to live at this time. What's more, Xiao Yudi has always lived in this villa, and I can't kick her out just after I arrived. But at this moment, it happened to start raining heavily outside. "Well, young master, if you don't mind, why don't you stay here first? After all, this is a 3-story villa with many rooms." By the end of the conversation, Xiao Yudi's voice was almost inaudible. A man and a woman alone on a rainy night, this situation is really something that makes people think about something else. The rain outside was getting heavier and heavier, and Li Yue had no choice but to move in. The villa has 4 floors, 3 above ground and 1 underground. Each floor is more than 200 square meters and covers a very large area. And as the most luxurious community in Los Angeles, each single-family villa has a private courtyard of nearly 300 square meters. Moreover, Li Yue discovered that his building was the best in the entire community, and he could overlook the entire lake from the window. The interior decoration of their house is simple yet luxurious, and most of them are custom-made from top brands. Li Yue found a guest room on the 3rd floor facing the lake and made it his temporary home. Li Yue casually placed his luggage on the floor and looked at the lake outside the window. The bright moonlight was shining on the lake. The surface of the lake was full of ripples under the heavy rain, just like Li Yue's heart at the moment. "I originally wanted to live a peaceful life as an ordinary person, but reality gave me a heavy blow." Li Yue held a purple dragon-shaped jade pendant on his chest, and his irritable mood became much calmer. Since her mother's accident, this jade pendant has been the only thing she left for her. "Mother, you told me that I could give up everything except this jade pendant. But what secrets are contained in this jade pendant? I have never been able to comprehend it for so many years." Li Yue placed the purple dragon-shaped jade pendant in front of his eyes, and the bright moonlight easily penetrated the jade pendant. This jade pendant, which is half the size of a palm, does not have any impurities at all. It is crystal clear and is definitely the best quality jade. In order to unlock the secret of the jade pendant, Li Yue also learned a lot of knowledge about jade. "But I have no idea what material my jade pendant is made of. Even the top-grade purple jadeite is not even 1% as good as my jade pendant." Boom boom boom. Just then there was a knock on the door. Li Yue opened the door and found that the person standing outside was Xiao Yudi, who had changed into a pink silk nightgown. Xiao Yudi from Luotian Group wears a simple shirt and hip skirt, showing the temptation of a mature beauty. Now that she was back home, she changed into a set of homely silk pajamas, which almost made Li Yue bleed from his nose. Without the covering of stockings and shirt, one can see that Xiao Yudi's skin is extremely fair and tender, with her snow-white arms and long legs exposed outside the nightgown. Especially when Li Yue lowered her head, she could see the cleavage revealed by the low-cut nightgown. "Young master, I've already prepared the meal, would you like to eat some together?" Xiao Yudi smiled slightly, her voice very gentle. However, Li Yue discovered that Xiao Yudi seemed to be pretending to be calm, because her originally very fair skin was turning pink at a speed visible to the naked eye. "Okay, let's eat together." Li Yue nodded and followed Xiao Yudi towards the restaurant. He tried his best not to look at Xiao Yudi's seductive twisting body, otherwise he was really afraid that he would have a nosebleed while walking, which would be too embarrassing. The dishes Xiao Yudi cooks are all very simple: scrambled eggs with tomatoes, hot and sour shredded potatoes, lotus root and pork rib soup, and a plate of braised pork. They are just simple home-cooked meals. But it is mouth-watering, with good color, aroma and taste. Looking at the dishes on the table, Li Yue was filled with emotion. During the years of dating Su Yunjin, I cooked for her. But even if he put all kinds of thought into making various dishes for Su Yunjin, the other party would still find fault with them. "Young master, I usually cook for myself, so I don't know if it suits your taste," Xiao Yudi said with a smile, and considerately helped Li Yue serve the meal. After Li Yue took a few bites, his eyes lit up. "I can't believe it. I didn't expect that President Xiao has such good cooking skills. Young master, if you are willing, I can cook for you all the time." Chapter 8 Purple Dragon Jade Pendant. As soon as Xiao Yudi said this, she wanted to slap herself. "Oh my god, what am I talking about?" Xiao Yudi didn't know what was wrong. She had always been mature and steady, but in front of Li Yue, she was like a little girl who had just fallen in love. For a moment, she even spoke out what was in her heart. She quickly glanced at Li Yue, and only then did she breathe a sigh of relief when she saw that Li Yue's expression did not change and he was still eating calmly. Li Yue had a good appetite today. He ate 5 big bowls of rice in a row, and he ate up all the remaining rice in the rice cooker by himself. On the one hand, it was because Li Yue himself was a martial artist and had been practicing the Li family's inherited skills since he was a child, so his appetite was much bigger than that of ordinary people. In addition, the dishes Xiao Yudi cooked were indeed to his liking, so he couldn't control himself for a moment. Looking at the empty rice cooker, Li Yue felt a little embarrassed for a moment. He didn't expect that he had eaten up all the rice just after arriving at someone's house. "I'm sorry, it was because your cooking was so delicious that I couldn't keep it." "It's okay, young master. I can't eat much anyway, so I don't have to leave any leftovers. If you're not full, I'll make it for you." Xiao Yudi didn't show any dissatisfaction and still smiled gently. "No, I'm full." Li Yue quickly waved his hand to refuse. Seeing that Xiao Yudi still wanted to help him wash the dishes, Li Yue pushed her out of the kitchen. Xiao Yudi had already prepared the meal, so it was no big deal for her to wash the dishes herself. Besides, Li Yue is not a young master who has been living in the Li family and cannot take care of himself. He has been taking care of Su Yunjin all these years and he has long been accustomed to these things. After leaving the kitchen, Li Yue found that Xiao Yudi was still sitting in the living room, as if waiting for him. "Young master, I have something to report to you." Xiao Yudi had a laptop in her hand, and Li Yue discovered that the computer displayed information about the current situation of Jinxiu Company. "Jinxiu Company? Didn't I say that I would cut off all business with them? What's the problem?" Li Yue frowned. He didn't want to have anything to do with Su Yunjin anymore. "Young master, this is the case. Our group has indeed cut off all cooperation with Jinxiu Company. But I asked my men to pay more attention to the things of Jinxiu Company. They just reported to me that there seems to be other companies in Los Angeles that want to cooperate with Jinxiu Company. You know, although my Luocheng group is not a particularly large company in Tianju, it is definitely one of the best in Luocheng. We have terminated all cooperation with Jinxiu Group, but I think it is a bit strange that someone dares to take over at this time." Out of her woman's intuition, Xiao Yudi keenly realized that she, the young master, seemed to have some connection with Jinxiu Company, so she was more careful when giving orders to her subordinates. Xiao Yudi nodded and said, "Young master, the one who contacted Jinxiu Company was the Zhu family, the same Zhu family that you kicked unconscious today. I guess it's very likely that the Zhu family was targeted by our Luotian group, so they wanted to get some money from Jinxiu Company. Li Yue was too lazy to pay attention to this, and just waved his hand and said, "You can handle these things yourself. It has nothing to do with us who Jinxiu Company cooperates with. I just don't want Luotian Group to be involved with them. You don't have to care even if this company goes bankrupt." After saying that, Li Yue returned to the room. Xiao Yudi sat on the sofa with her brows slightly frowned. After thinking for a while, she began to search for the personal information of the chairman of Jinxiu Company. Li Yue tossed and turned in bed, unable to fall asleep. Too many things have happened recently, and he is a little upset. However, because he had too many thoughts, Li Yue tossed and turned and fell into a deep sleep. At this moment, the moonlight outside the window projected onto Li Yue through the glass, and the dragon-shaped jade pendant on his chest emitted a purple halo. The whole bedroom seemed to be filled with a thick purple air. When the dragon-shaped jade pendant flashed, all the dark clouds in the sky above Yunhu quietly dissipated, and the rain that was originally drizzling stopped. Countless stars are twinkling above Yunhu, and thousands of galaxies are becoming extremely bright at this moment. One could even vaguely see that there seemed to be wisps of silver-white light coming from all directions and converging into the dragon-shaped jade pendant on Li Yue's chest. Li Yue, who was sleeping, seemed to hear faintly the roar of a dragon. Amid the dragon roars, Li Yue slowly opened his eyes, but what he saw was not the bedroom of the villa, but a strange space that looked like an ancient land. Am I dreaming? The strange scene in front of him made Li Yue feel extremely surprised for a moment, but the next second he was stunned where he was. Because when Li Yue looked up, he found a huge purple gold dragon above him. This purple gold divine dragon is 10,000 feet long, its massive body covering the sky and blocking out the sun, and the golden dragon scales on its body are sparkling with thousands of lights. Before Li Yue could react, he found that the huge dragon in the sky seemed to be looking at him. The golden pupils exuded so much majesty that Li Yue felt like his heart was about to skip a beat. Roar! A violent roar was heard, and the next second Li Yue saw that the huge purple gold dragon turned into countless ancient runes. Then all these ancient texts came towards him. For a moment, Li Yue felt a splitting headache, as if his brain was about to explode. Gradually, Li Yue discovered that these ancient characters seemed to be engraved in his heart. Although his brain seemed to be pierced by thousands of silver roots, Li Yue knew that he absolutely could not give up easily at this time. Just like this, half an hour passed, and Li Yue's whole body was soaked with cold sweat. The severe pain made his face turn extremely pale. Fortunately, this kind of pain finally came to an end, and countless words slowly gathered into a strange skill. Futilder. The next second, Li Yue sat up from the bed. Looking around, he found that he was still in the bedroom, but he was covered in cold sweat. Was that a nightmare? This dream was too real. Looking at the familiar scenes around him, Li Yue let out a breath, knowing that he was probably having another nightmare. This was not the first day that he had dreamed of the purple gold dragon, but today it felt so real. The pain was so heartbreaking that even now Li Yue felt his head was dizzy and a little painful. Is it possible that Xiao Yudi didn't cook the food well enough and gave me food poisoning? That's not right. There are no beans in tonight's dishes. It seems that I scared myself. Just when Li Yue breathed a sigh of relief, his body suddenly jumped up from the bed. The purple dragon-shaped jade pendant that he had been wearing on his chest suddenly disappeared. Li Yue searched the bed but couldn't find it. Even the rope that hung the jade pendant was missing. Li Yue felt something and subconsciously lifted his clothes to look at his chest. Sure enough, he found a dragon-shaped mark with a faint glow on his chest. But the next second the mark disappeared, as if it was just an illusion. Could it be that this wasn't a dream? Li Yue sat on the bed, his body shaking uncontrollably. Over the years, he has been trying to figure out the secret of the jade pendant but has never been able to solve it. He never thought it was related to the nightmares he has been having. Li Yue recalled the martial arts he had acquired in his dream. 9 Dragons Divine Control Technique. Every word of this unique skill seemed to be engraved in Li Yue's mind extremely clearly. Could it be that the jade pendant my mother left me actually contains a powerful technique? As a powerful family with a history of more than 1,000 years, the Li family has relied not only on financial resources but also on powerful martial arts to survive to this day. It can even be said that those powerful families with a long history have extremely rich martial arts background behind them. Financial resources without military support are just like duckweed, unable to withstand wind and rain. However, for some reason, Li Yue seemed to have some problems with his meridians, and was very slow in practicing the Li family's martial arts. There hasn't been much progress over the years, and my body is just slightly stronger than that of an ordinary person. So Li Yue didn't dare to investigate the truth of his mother's past. After all, even the old man didn't have the ability, let alone himself. Chapter 9: Nine Dragons Divine Art, Entering the Qi Refining Realm. There are 9 levels in the 9 Dragons Divine Control technique. Every time you break through a level, a dragon vein will be generated in your body. According to the records of martial arts, when 9 dragons gather together, they can have power comparable to that of ghosts and gods. Although he has not practiced it yet, Li Yue can clearly feel that the 9 Dragons Divine Controlling technique is completely different from ordinary martial arts techniques. Under normal circumstances, the realm of martial arts is divided into the mortal realm, the acquired realm, the innate realm, the master realm and the grand master realm. Li Yue has practiced the Li family's martial arts for many years, but has only just reached the late stage of the mortal realm. However, even so, his strength is already equivalent to those of professional fighters. However, the 9 Dragons Divine Controlling technique is different. The realms are divided into Qi Refining, Foundation Building, Golden Core, and Nascent Soul. Li Yue could see that there were records of other realms in this technique, but with his current strength, it seemed impossible to view them. These realms that were different from martial arts surprised Li Yue, because no matter how he looked at them, they seemed to be the realms that only the legendary cultivators could understand. The Dragon Kingdom is divided into 9 states. Qianzhou is located in the northern part of the Dragon Kingdom. The Li family is one of the 4 major families in Qianzhou. It is also a martial arts family with a history of over 1,000 years. For ordinary families, a martial arts family with a long tradition is definitely a behemoth and a dominant force. However, Li Yue had learned some legends from the ancient family books, and it seemed that there were some cultivation sects above the martial arts families. It's just that these sects of cultivation seem to be detached from the world, as if they only exist in legends. At least with the strength of the Qianzhou Li family, they have never had any contact with these sects of cultivation. Li Yue had always thought that this was just a legend before, but the 9 Dragons Divine Controlling technique in his mind could no longer be false. Mother, is this the most precious treasure you left me? Li Yue clenched his fists and a cold light flashed in his eyes. I have practiced the Li family's martial arts for many years but have not made much progress. I hope that the 9 Dragons Divine Controlling technique can help me change my fate. Don't worry, Mother, I will find out the truth of that year no matter what. Slowly exhaling a breath of turbid air, Li Yue began to breathe in the spiritual energy of heaven and earth according to the records of the 9 Dragons Controlling God technique. Sitting cross-legged on the bed, he focused his energy on his dantian. With Li Yue's breathing, his pulse gradually became steady. The techniques of the 9 Dragons Divine Controlling Art seemed to be engraved in Li Yue's mind and were running smoothly without any hindrance. The next second, Li Yue could clearly feel that there seemed to be wisps of spiritual energy between heaven and earth converging towards his body. This force was so powerful that Li Yue felt some swelling and pain in all his meridians. After practicing Li family martial arts for many years, Li Yue only practiced some external skills to make his physical fitness more condensed, but he could never gather the true energy. But I didn't expect that the speed of gathering spiritual energy would be so fast. Strands of spiritual energy flowed into the body and began to flow continuously through the meridians under the guidance of the exercises. From gathering spiritual energy to running the great circulation, it only took Li Yue less than half a quarter of an hour. Li Yue still remembers his martial arts master when he was a child, who was a top master in the Li family. His true energy could even block bullets. However, it took the old master several hours to condense his true energy and circulate it throughout his body. Even so, he was already considered to be extremely talented. There was a glimmer of excitement in Li Yue's eyes. He thought he was a loser in martial arts, but it turned out that he was a genius in Taoism. As the power of 9 dragons continued to flow through his body, Li Yue could clearly feel that his physical strength was constantly increasing. The muscles all over his body became extremely condensed, the beating sounds of his organs were like thunder, and his 5 senses became much more sensitive than before. I didn't expect that there really is such a cultivation method in the world. I just started practicing and I have actually broken through the bottleneck and entered the acquired realm. Li Huaye gathered his spiritual energy and circulated it throughout his body, barely entering the first level of qi refining. His strength had increased several times more than before. A night passed quickly, and even though Li Huaye didn't sleep, he felt his mind was extremely clear. After a night of practice, Li Huaye has broken through to the third level of qi refining, and his strength is equivalent to the peak of the acquired realm. Li Huaye was surprised by such a terrifying breakthrough speed. As Li Huaye stood up, the bones all over his body suddenly crackled like frying beans. However, their house was filled with an extremely strong fishy smell, and Li Huaye was covered with all kinds of black sticky substances. During this night, Li Huaye continued to practice his skills, and his spiritual power reopened hundreds of meridians in his body, further expelling impurities from his body. As the young master of the Li family, Li Huaye had taken many medicinal pills when he was a child, and had also used various body-refining spiritual liquids to temper his body. His physical quality is much stronger than that of ordinary people, and a lot of impurities in his body have been discharged intermittently over the years. However, Li Huaye did not expect that after only practicing the Nine Dragons divine controlling technique for one night, his body has been reborn. Unable to bear the fishy smell on his body, Li Huaye rushed directly into the bathroom. After washing, he found that his originally bronze skin had become very white. His skin became as smooth as a baby's, his face became more handsome, his facial features became more upright, his eyebrows became sharp, his eyes became bright, and his forehead became fuller. Especially those eyes as black as ink, which did not show any sign of decadence even after a sleepless night. Oh no, I'm really going to be a gigolo this time. Li Huaye shook his head helplessly. The changes brought about by his cultivation method were even more exaggerated than the advertisements made by those skincare product companies. Li Huaye looked at himself in the mirror. There was a faint shadow of a purple dragon pattern on his chest and abdomen, which was almost invisible to the naked eye. The threshold for the first level of the Nine Dragons divine controlling technique is very low, as long as one can reach the qi refining mirror. Li Huaye did it in one night. As the technique was working, Li Huaye's right arm faintly glowed with a faint purple gold light, and the degree of refinement of his body was far greater than other parts of his body. This is because after entering the first level of the Nine Dragons divine control technique, Li Huaye's right arm has opened up a dragon vein. Li Huaye felt that his right hand seemed to have tremendous strength. Although his realm was equivalent to the peak of the acquired realm, the power burst out from his right fist could already reach the innate realm. Boom boom boom. There was another knock on the door. Li Huaye looked at the time and it was only 7:30. When I opened the door, it was indeed Xiao Yudi, but Xiao Yudi had changed into a smart suit in the morning. The azure blue shirt is calm yet old-fashioned, and the black hip skirt wraps the thighs perfectly. Today, Xiao Yudi changed into a pair of flesh-colored stockings, and her delicate feet were clearly visible. Young master, I have already prepared breakfast. Xiao Yudi was halfway through her words when she suddenly froze in place. Chapter 10 Sending the Female CEO to Work. Xiao Yudi didn't know if it was her illusion, but she felt that Li Huaye seemed to have changed a little, becoming more handsome and heroic. Especially the pair of eyes that were extremely bright, as if there were thousands of stars circulating, and as if there was an ancient ferocious beast lurking in them. Thank you for your hard work. Li Huaye nodded politely. You are too polite, young master. It is my honor to serve you. Before Xiao Yudi finished speaking, her eyes moved up and down Li Huaye's face, and then a blush quickly spread from her ears to her neck. Li Huaye, who had just come out of the bathroom, was only casually wearing a bath towel and the water stains on his body had not been wiped dry yet. His body is full of muscles, sharp edges and full of explosive power. Xiao Yudi stood there for a while, feeling a little overwhelmed. I didn't expect that the young master actually had such a good figure. Ahem, how about you go out first and let me change my clothes? He was only wearing a bath towel. Even though Li Huaye was thick-skinned, he felt a little embarrassed when Xiao Yudi kept staring at him. I'm sorry, master. I didn't mean it. After Xiao Yudi reacted, she screamed, covered her face and ran downstairs. Li Huaye shook his head helplessly, then changed into simple casual clothes and walked downstairs. Breakfast was a simple meal of soy milk, fried dough sticks and sandwiches, all still warm and emitting bursts of aroma. I didn't expect that there would be a breakfast stall in this high-end residential area of Yunhuya Yuan. Li Huaye took a fried dough stick and started to eat it. The fried dough stick was crispy on the outside and tender on the inside, with a strong wheat flavor.
No, young master, I made this morning.
Xiao Yudi said softly, the blush on her face had not yet faded. Li Huaye looked up in surprise. He didn't expect that the female president of Luotian Group was actually a little cook. This woman not only cooks delicious home-cooked meals, but she can even cook breakfast like fried dough sticks. Actually, I don't usually fry dough sticks myself, but today I want you to try it. How does it taste? Xiao Yudi looked at Li Huaye with a hint of expectation in her eyes. Li Huaye smiled without saying anything, but just nodded continuously, and picked up another fried dough stick to show his liking for it. Seeing this, Xiao Yudi's smile widened, like a blooming red rose. If the young men from the wealthy families in Luo City saw this scene, they would surely be shocked. Xiao Yudi, who was regarded as the iceberg beauty in the business world of Luo City, had never shown such a charming smile before, and it was even more impossible for her to cook for a man. Li Huaye was very satisfied drinking the warm and sweet soy milk and eating the hot and crispy fried dough sticks.
Damn it, God knows what kind of life I led when I was with Su Yunjin.
That night when he learned that Su Yunjin went to find Zhao Qianan, Li Huaye felt a pain in his heart as if it was being stabbed by a knife, but now he has figured it out. It's a good thing to discover these things before getting married. Su Yunjin had always been thinking about Zhao Qianan, so she didn't get the marriage certificate with him before the wedding. I originally felt a little dissatisfied, but now it seems that it couldn't be better. After breakfast, Li Huaye looked at Xiao Yudi, who had cleaned up and was getting ready to go out. Your car is still at the company, how about I take you there? Hearing this, Xiao Yudi's heartbeat accelerated again. But after thinking about it, she shook her head and said, no need, young master, just rest at home. Although Xiao Yudi really wanted to agree, she also knew that she was just a president. The person in front of him is not only the actual person in charge of Luotian Group, but also the young master of Tianzhu Li family. Xiao Yudi didn't dare to let such a big shot drive for her, as she still wanted to continue living in Los Angeles. However, Li Huaye did not allow any refusal and simply followed Xiao Yudi out the door. Let's go. Anyway, I don't have much to do recently. You are the person I trust most in Luotian Group, so I'll just take you for a ride. Xiao Yudi was secretly delighted when she heard this and did not refuse any more. Along the way, Li Huaye's limited edition Rolls-Royce really stole the show, with the turning heads rate reaching 300%. Our group has dormitories, so we should also have cars. This Rolls-Royce is a bit too high profile. Li Huaye knew what the old man meant. He gave the Luotian Group to him in the hope that he could secretly build up his own power and investigate the truth of what happened back then. So Li Huaye didn't want to attract too much attention. He didn't know how many people's attention he had attracted along the way. Young master, there is a car in our group's underground parking garage. You can just go and get it when the time comes. Li Huaye nodded. By the way, don't call me young master from now on. Just call me Li Huaye. If that doesn't work, you can call me boss or director Li. Now is not the time to reveal his relationship with the Li family. The title of young master will inevitably attract the attention of some interested people. Xiao Yudi nodded after hearing this. Okay, young master, okay, boss. Xiao Yudi also wanted to call Li Huaye by his name directly, but she was a shrewd woman and knew her limits. The relationship between the two had not reached that point yet. Soon the car stopped downstairs of the group. Many people around widened their eyes when they saw the handsome men and beautiful women getting out of the Rolls-Royce. Although no one knows Li Huaye, Xiao Yudi, the female president of Luotian Group, is definitely well known. Normally, those who pursue Xiao Yudi can line up directly abroad, but Xiao Yudi has never taken any opposite sex seriously. No one expected that the famous iceberg female president would actually come to work in the same car with a man today. The employees of Luotian Group were all burning with gossip. However, Xiao Yudi's secretary ran over when he saw Li Huaye, and said respectfully, Director Li, everything you ordered yesterday has been completed. We have completely cut off all contact with Jinxiu Company. When they heard the secretary addressing Li Huaye, many employees of Luotian Group finally realized that the young and handsome man in front of them was actually the director of the group. At this moment, the smiles on everyone's faces disappeared instantly, and they all bowed respectfully to Li Huaye. This kind of scene made Li Huaye a little uncomfortable. Okay, let's continue working. I don't need this so-called sense of ceremony.
Li Huaye stayed in the company for a while and looked at a few documents that Xiao Yudi brought over. After confirming that there were no problems, he threw them all to Xiao Yudi. I told you, I trust you enough. Before I took over the company, you had already made Luotian Group flourish, so I will still let you take charge of all the company's affairs. If you encounter any problems, come to me. After giving the order, Li Huaye turned around and left. Now that he had obtained the 9 Dragons' divine controlling technique, he just wanted to go back and practice with peace of mind. Although the spiritual power in the body is constantly circulating after the martial arts has broken through to the first level, the efficiency will be higher if you concentrate on meditation. Although the 9 Dragons' divine controlling technique that he practiced broke through very quickly, Li Huaye knew very well that the mastermind behind his mother's accident definitely had a power that was strong enough to cover the sky. Even the Li family was helpless. One can imagine how terrifying this force is that has been at a loss for so many years. Chapter 11: The Vigorous Old Man. After returning to Yinhuya Yuan, Li Huaye strolled around the community. As the top villa area for the rich in Los Angeles, Yinhuya Yuan has a low population density and is mostly surrounded by various original vegetation. The air in the community is very fresh, and walking along this tree-lined road, Li Huaye's mood also became very calm. Li Huaye was observing the situation in the community as he walked. After mastering the 9 Dragons' divine controlling technique, Li Huaye's eyes gained a unique ability and could vaguely see the direction of the spiritual energy. Although Li Huaye has not practiced any feng shui techniques in these years, the 9 Dragons' divine controlling technique is magical enough that even secular feng shui cannot compare to what he sees. In order to judge feng shui, a feng shui master needs to observe the stars at night, look at various mountains and rivers, check various architectural patterns, etc. But Li Huaye didn't need that at all. He just needed to use his own eyes to look directly at the qi around him. The level of feng shui can be judged by the concentration of spiritual energy. Li Huaye discovered that the villa number 1 where he was indeed the king of the buildings in Yinhuya Yuan. There is a lake in front and a mountain behind, with a river running through it. It is a feng shui treasure land where wind and energy gather. It is also the place with the richest spiritual energy. Such a strong bloody energy. Li Huaye suddenly felt that there seemed to be a blood energy approaching around him. He turned his head and saw an old man not far away with bursts of blood light emitting from his head. The rich blood energy made Li Huaye's pupils shrink. This rich blood energy was definitely the Lord of Killing who walked out of the Sea of Corpses. Li Huaye didn't expect that Yinhuya Yuan was full of hidden talents. He just came out for a walk during the day, but he could meet such a big shot. Li Huaye looked in the direction of the blood and found that the owner of this monstrous blood was actually a white-haired old man. The old man was wearing a grey Zhongshan suit, with a ruddy complexion and kind eyes. He didn't look like a man with blood on his hands at all. But Li Huaye knew that his eyes would not deceive. I have just cultivated to the 3rd level of qi refining, and the eyes of the heavenly dragon are not accurate in observing various types of qi. But even so, I can see that the old man is full of blood and energy, which is enough to show how terrifying the other party is. Young man, you look unfamiliar. Are you new here? As if seeing Li Huaye looking towards him, the old man took the initiative to greet him with a very warm smile. Hello, old man. I did move here recently, but how did you know? Li Huaye was a little confused. Although there were not many residents in Yinhuya Yuan, the community covered a large area and most of the residents hardly bumped into each other. At least I have only seen the lights on and have not met the residents here. The old man with blood on his head is the first one. To be honest, young man, I was in the reconnaissance unit when I was young. I know all the residents here by heart, but you are a stranger. Li Huaye suddenly realized what was going on when he heard this. It turned out that the old man in front of him was a military man. No wonder he had such a strong aura of blood. Looking at the blood on the old man's head, Li Huaye was filled with awe for a moment. Since its founding, Dragon Kingdom has experienced countless battles, and it is these bloody battles that have brought us today's stable society. But then Li Yaming frowned. He found a small ball of black air not far behind the old man. What's the problem, young man? When the old man saw Li Huaye's expression change, he was stunned for a moment. Li Huaye thought about it, then walked forward and said solemnly, Grandpa, have you felt anything wrong in your life recently? The old man in front of him is the founder of the Dragon Kingdom. It is fate that he meets him now. Li Huaye doesn't mind helping him once. However, this black gas made Li Yue feel a little confused. After all, he did not understand the art of feng shui, and he was not sure what it was for a moment. When the old man heard Li Yue's words, a hint of surprise flashed in his eyes, but before he could reply, a young woman in white sportswear suddenly ran over from not far away. The woman was wearing a loose sports suit and her long black hair was tied in a simple high ponytail behind her head, making her look very capable. There was no makeup on her fair and smooth face, and her bare face was enough to captivate the whole country. The few drops of sweat on her forehead made her look even more heroic. However, the woman looked at Li Yue with eyes full of vigilance and even a hint of disgust. "Grandpa, be careful. I heard that there are many charlatans in Los Angeles who claim to know feng shui. These guys speak so vividly that they can scare people off. You must not be fooled." Although the young woman did not say it directly, Li Yue could tell that she was making indirect accusations and calling him a liar. The old man said in a deep voice, "Xiaomai, don't be rude." The old man said as he bowed to Li Yue, "I am Wan Yunlong, and this is my granddaughter Wan Mai. The little girl is usually arrogant. I hope you don't mind what she said." Li Yue was stunned when he heard this. He was very familiar with the name Wan Yunlong, who was one of the 3 great war gods in the north of Long Kingdom. He was known as the Northern Dragon from the clouds. He had participated in more than 100 wars, both large and small. Not only are his elite soldiers invincible, but he himself possesses powerful martial arts skills at the peak of the Grandmaster level. Many people who wanted to assassinate Wan Yunlong secretly were successfully killed by him. Li Yue never expected that such a legend of the Dragon Country's military actually lived in the same neighborhood as him. He quickly bowed respectfully to the old man in front of him. "War God Ruan, I never expected to meet you here. I thought you were living in the capital, but I didn't expect you were actually in Los Angeles." Wan Yunlong waved his hand towards Li Yue with a smile on his face. "Young man, the war gods or no war gods are all in the past. I am just an ordinary old man enjoying my retirement now. Los Angeles is my hometown and I must return to it." Li Yue's eyes widened. He didn't expect that this small Luo Cheng was so full of hidden talents. The dignified Song Yunlong from the Northern Territory was actually from Luo Cheng. He had never heard of him before. "Okay, Grandpa, why are you talking so much to this kind of person? I don't know what's wrong with the security of Yunhuya Yuan. They let anyone in." Wan Mai glared at Li Yue with dissatisfaction, then pulled Wan Yunlong's arm and wanted to leave. Li Yue was speechless for a moment. He wanted to do a good deed, but he didn't expect to be regarded as a swindler. "Old man, have you been waking up in the middle of the night for no reason recently? Your body, which was originally burning with heat, suddenly breaks out in cold sweat for no reason. And has your family been experiencing bad luck recently? The servants often break cups and plates, and they all look listless. Is anyone in the family already ill?" Chapter 12. Wan Mai refuses to admit defeat. After Li Yue said this series of words, Wan Yunlong's eyes instantly became extremely solemn, and a cold light emanated from his slightly old eyes. Their whole person was like a lion waiting for its prey, his eyes fixed on Li Yue. The temperature around him dropped instantly, and the cold light in his eyes was like a sword. However, what surprised Wan Yunlong was that Li Yue, who was only in his early 20s, did not show any fear after looking at him. Those eyes were so deep that even after Wan Yunlong and Li Yue looked at each other, they actually felt a strong sense of oppression. As one of the Northern War gods, he hadn't had this feeling for many years, and for a moment he was a little curious about Li Yue's identity. However, the impatience on Wan Mai's face had become even more serious. "I'm telling you, you charlatan, are you going to stop? You keep saying the same thing every day. Aren't you tired of it? If you don't get out of here, I'll have someone arrest you and interrogate you." Wan Mai's brows were tightly knitted together with a cold expression on her face. Li Yue even noticed that Wan Mai tapped the ground lightly with her left foot. Her body seemed to be tense, ready to attack him at any time. "Xiaomai, I told you not to be rude." After scolding Wan Mai, Wan Yunlong looked Li Yue up and down, with a hint of doubt still in his eyes. "Young man, to be honest, what you just said is indeed true. There have been many strange things happening in my family recently. I didn't expect that you, who are so young, could be so accurate. But I have always believed that as long as one behaves properly, there is nothing to fear." Wan Yunlong laughed, and although he was a little surprised by what Li Yue said, he didn't take it to heart.
As a god of war who emerged from a sea of blood and corpses, Wan Yunlong did not think this kind of thing was anything to worry about. Li Yue did not argue when he heard this, but just shrugged his shoulders as if he did not comment. Old man, if there is anything that your family cannot solve recently, you can come to Villa number 1 to find me. You were once the god of war of the dragon country. Without your sacrifice, there would be no dragon country today. If you need me, I will definitely help you. Wan Yunlong also nodded, and was very satisfied with the young man Li Yue, but Wan Mai on the side couldn't bear to watch it anymore. I say, you are charlatan, and you are not done with it, are you? Villa number 1, do you know who lives there? Although it is no problem for our Wan family to live in Villa number 1, that Villa number 1 was already bought by the Luotian Group a long time ago. What kind of relationship do you have with the Luotian Group that you can live in Villa number 1? Moreover, if I remember correctly, the female president of the Luotian Group, Xiao Yudi, lives in Villa number 1. Aren't you afraid of getting your tongue stuck when you brag? Wan Mai sneered, and the more she spoke, the more convinced she seemed to be that Li Yue was a liar. I saw her tap the ground with her right foot, and all the muscles in her body instantly exerted force like springs. At this moment, that very slender body pounced towards Li Yue like a female leopard. Li Yue raised his eyebrows slightly. As the granddaughter of the god of war, Wan Mai was indeed a martial artist. The aura revealed by the other party at this moment was definitely at the peak of the mortal realm, and one more step would allow him to enter the acquired realm. If they had met Wan Mai 2 days ago, it would be hard to say who would win or lose. But now, bang! There was a loud sound of muscle collision, and Wan Mai instantly crossed a distance of 4 or 5 meters. With a high kick, her right leg reached Li Yue's head in the blink of an eye. However, this straight and powerful long leg was accurately blocked by a strong arm. There was a flash of surprise in Wan Mai's eyes. She was very confident in her own abilities and was definitely considered an expert among her peers. He wanted to kick Li Yue, the charlatan, unconscious with one kick, but he didn't expect to be stopped so easily. I say, woman, why are you fighting while you're talking? Li Yue sighed helplessly. Wan Mai thought that Li Yue was mocking her, so she launched another attack. Her fists were so powerful that her sleeves made a sound of breaking through the air. However, no matter how Wan Mai attacked, Li Yue was able to block his attack with just one arm. Wan Yunlong, who was not far away, also had a flash of surprise in his eyes. He did not expect that Li Yue's hand could be so agile. His granddaughter is no match for Li Yue, which proves that Li Yue has at least reached the acquired realm. Bang! 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 The sound of muscles colliding continued to echo. Wan Mai's eyebrows were already tightly furrowed, and Li Yue's arms seemed to be made of iron. After the collision between the two, she herself was almost unable to hold on. Li Yue was getting a little impatient. He blocked Wan Mai's whip kick and then tripped her. But he didn't expect that Wan Mai lost control of her body and fell directly on him. Feeling the soft touch on his chest, Li Yue's blood surged instantly. Good man, you can't judge a book by its cover. The size of this weapon is comparable to that of Xiao Yudi's. Wan Mai was blocked by Li Yue repeatedly. Her limbs were so sore that she could not bear it. After being tripped by Li Yue, she fell directly on Li Yue. The towering breasts pressed against Li Yue's chest, making him feel a little distracted for a moment. At this moment, Wan Mai was filled with shame and anger. She raised her right leg high, which was still held in Li Yue's hand. His left leg collapsed weakly and his whole body fell on Li Yue. This was his first time to have such close contact with the opposite sex. The action of keeping her legs raised high caused Wan Mai's loose training clothes to slide down slightly, revealing her snow-white and smooth calves. The very fair skin even glowed in the sunlight. Although there was some sweat on Wan Mai's body, there was no sweat odor. Instead, there was a faint feminine body fragrance. Asshole! Let me go! Wan Mai was so angry that she wanted to strangle the man in front of her to death. At this moment, her right leg was held in Li Yue's hand, and her lower back was held tightly by Li Yue's hand. Her whole body was pressed against Li Yue and she could not move. Such a meeting scene made Li Yue swallow his saliva. When Li Yue saw Wan Mai's loose training clothes, he didn't expect that she had such a charming body. However, after noticing Wan Yunlong in the distance, Li Yue immediately became alert, because the person in front of him was the granddaughter of the Dragon Kingdom's god of war.
He quickly let go of Ruan Mai's long legs. Nice, very smooth and elastic. Li Yue let go and took a step back, commenting seriously. However, upon hearing this, Ruan Mai became even more furious and immediately attacked Li Yue again. Alright. Xiao Mai, stop making trouble. You are no match for this young man. Chapter 13. This is what you call low-key. Ruan Yunlong scolded quickly, and after hearing her grandfather's words, Ruan Mai reluctantly put down her fist. Young man, I didn't expect you to have such a high level of cultivation at your age. I wonder who your master is. Ruan Yunlong walked forward and crossed a distance of 5 meters in one step. This terrifying speed made Li Yue's eyelids jump. As expected of a master at the peak of his powers, there is an endless sense of oppression in every move he makes. I have no sect or school. Since you don't want to talk about it, I won't ask. It is a blessing for Luo Cheng to have a young talent like you. Ruan Yunlong looked at Li Yue with eyes full of approval. He has remarkable martial arts skills at a young age and is a mature and steady person. He has neither the arrogance of children of high-ranking officials nor the extravagance of wealthy and noble families. Old man, what I said before still counts. If your family encounters any problems, you can come to me. After saying this, Li Yue turned and left. Li Yue didn't want to stay and get into trouble by bullying someone's granddaughter in front of the northern god of war. Looking at the direction where Li Yue left, Ruan Mai stomped her feet in anger. Okay, Xiao Mai, I've already told you that you are no match for that young man. If you insist on overestimating yourself, you can only blame yourself for being too arrogant if you suffer a loss. His speed is far superior to yours, and he can accurately judge the trajectory of your attacks. I believe that when you two first fought, you already knew that his realm was higher than yours. Your character that refuses to admit defeat will easily lead to you suffering a great loss. Ruan Yunlong shook his head and looked at his precious granddaughter helplessly. Ruan Mai pouted when she heard this. Grandpa, it's obviously that guy's fault, why are you still speaking in his favor? I admit that he does have some martial arts skills, but what he said was so mysterious, no different from the street vendors. Ruan Yunlong did not reply after hearing this. After a long while, he spoke lightly. Xiao Mai, you are not young anymore. You should stop being so arrogant and arbitrary. This world is far from being as simple as you think. After returning to the villa, Li Yue began to practice with full concentration, with vast spiritual energy constantly flowing through his body. At dusk, accompanied by a fluctuation of spiritual power, Li Yue broke through to the 4th level of qi refining, and his strength was already equivalent to that of a warrior in the innate realm. A smile appeared on Li Yue's lips. Now he finally had the ability to protect himself. Looking at the world of martial arts, a martial artist at the Xiantian realm can be considered an expert. After looking at the time, Li Yue drove to Luotian Group. He remembered that Xiao Yudi didn't take the car keys this morning because she was riding in her own car. And it was just the right time for him to replace this Rolls-Royce. This car was too conspicuous when driving on the street, which did not conform to his principle of keeping a low profile. Xiao Yudi, who had just walked out of the elevator, happened to meet Li Yue, who came to the company. A bright smile immediately appeared on her face. Boss, why are you here? Xiao Yudi quickly came to Li Yue's side. I think I'm almost off work, so I came to pick you up. Xiao Yudi was secretly delighted when she heard this, and couldn't help but lower her head and bite her red lips. Looking at the cold and aloof female president in front of him, who suddenly made such a seductive expression, the contrast made Li Yue's breathing quicken. Okay, come with me to change a car first. Xiao Yudi nodded, and casually took Li Yue to the company garage across the street in her high heels. Xiao Yudi pressed the key, and suddenly the lights of a low-end black Maybach lit up. Boss, this is your car. How is it? If you are not satisfied, we have a better one. Li Yue was stunned when he saw this. Is this the low-key car you mentioned? Although this Maybach is a low-end version, it still costs more than 2 million. At least when Li Yue was with Su Yunjin, they couldn't afford such a luxury car. Boss, this is the cheapest car the company has allocated to you. Xiao Yudi said helplessly. The financial resources of the Luotian Group are very strong. Looking at the entire Luocheng, there are not many forces that can threaten the Luotian Group simply with financial resources. Neither the villa in Yunhu Yaoyuan nor the Maybach sedan means anything to the Luotian Group. Xiao Yudi discovered that her boss did not behave like a top young master.
Although others don't know Li Ya's true identity, she knows it very well. The Li family is one of the four major families in Tianzhu. It is a powerful family with a heritage of over 1,000 years and a huge business empire with trillions of assets. Not to mention the level of the Li family, even some famous wealthy children in Los Angeles drive sports cars worth tens of millions and pick up girls every day. As a result, the boss himself actually complained that a car worth more than 2 million was too expensive. Li Yue was a little helpless, but still took the key. Although this Maybach is not cheap, it is much more low-key than his own customized Rolls-Royce worth more than 20 million yuan. This is the cheapest car that Luotian Group provides to Li Yue, but it is a Maybach after all. The black body of the car looks like a thug in a suit, and the more than 5-meter-long body shows its nobility. After stepping on the accelerator, Li Yue suddenly realized something was wrong. He saw Xiao Yudi standing next to him with a sly smile on her face. "What do you think, boss? Didn't you see that I specially had the engine and various accessories of the Maybach replaced? Now he has a supercar with a big V12 heart." Hearing Xiao Yudi's somewhat smug laughter, Li Yue nodded secretly in his heart. This woman is worthy of being the famous female president in Los Angeles. She is indeed very thoughtful. On their way home, Xiao Yudi found that Li Yue was a little absent-minded, and his eyes were always glancing at the sides of the road intentionally or unintentionally. "Boss, are you worried about something?" Xiao Yudi asked with some confusion. Li Yue shook his head and said calmly, "It's nothing. Just hold onto the handrail." Xiao Yudi was stunned when she heard this, not knowing what Li Yue meant. But she still did it subconsciously and grabbed the handrail on the car window. The next second, Xiao Yudi suddenly discovered that there were 3 fast-moving off-road vehicles behind her vehicle. This is the road leading to Yinhuyuan. It is a wealthy area far away from the downtown area, and there are usually not many vehicles on this road. Now 3 identical black SUVs suddenly appeared, and it was obvious that the other party had bad intentions. "Boss, what's going on?" Xiao Yudi's tone became a little hurried for a moment. Li Yue patted her hands gently, soothing her emotions. "It seems that there is indeed nothing wrong with this Eye of the Dragon." In the morning, Li Yue activated the Eye of the Heavenly Dragon and discovered that there was a faint black aura on Xiao Yudi's body. Worried about Xiao Yudi's safety, Li Yue drove to the company to pick her up after get-off work. Unexpectedly, something went wrong on their way home. As the sky gradually darkened, only Li Yue's 4 cars were left speeding on the road. Chapter 14 West City Tiger Gang. The 3 off-road vehicles approaching quickly from behind made Xiao Yudi a little panicked, but after feeling the warmth in Li Yue's palm, she felt as if she had taken a reassurance pill. "What should I do, boss? Should I call the police?" "Don't rush to call the police." Li Yue smiled coldly, then lightly stepped on the accelerator, and this modified Maybach rushed out in an instant like a black lightning. The people in the 3 SUVs were stunned when they saw this scene. "What are you looking at? Step on the accelerator and catch up with it. It's a big fish." Although the driver of the SUV stepped on the accelerator, the body of the SUV was heavy, and Li Yue's Maybach had been modified, so he could only watch the taillights of Li Yue's car getting farther and farther away. Xiao Yudi finally breathed a sigh of relief when he saw the 3 SUVs disappear in the rearview mirror. Xiao Yudi patted her chest gently, and her towering breasts rose and fell. Li Yue took a look and quickly looked away. The deep ravine almost made him lose his concentration. Beauty is a disaster. Finally got rid of them. Who are these guys? How dare they hijack a car so openly? Xiao Yudi frowned, feeling a little scared. It's more than just carjacking. They even dare to block the road. Li Yue sneered. At this moment, at the intersection 100 meters ahead of him, 3 off-road vehicles and 2 cars directly blocked the road. Squeak tilde. The sound of tires rubbing against the ground was very harsh in the silent night. "Stay in the car, I'll go down and take a look." As he said that, Li Yue unbuckled his seatbelt and prepared to get out of the car, but at this time Xiao Yudi pulled him back. "Boss, what are you doing? Don't you see all these people in front of you? They are here with bad intentions, you can't get off the car." There were more than a dozen people surrounding Li Yue's Maybach. These sturdy men were holding long knives and iron pipes in their hands, and they looked ferocious. "Boss, I forgot to tell you that this Maybach has also been modified. They can't break it open in a short time. Let's call the police directly."
I believe they will arrive soon. Don't be impulsive and don't get off the car. Li Yue was stunned when he heard Xiao Yudi's words. He didn't expect this woman to be so meticulous. Not only did she modify the car's power system, she also made the body of the car bulletproof. It's okay, they are just a bunch of hooligans. I want to know who they belong to. After saying that, Li Yue opened the car door and walked out. Boy, are you the driver of Luotian Group? This is none of your business, so get out of here. A bald man in a black vest walked out from the crowd. He was 1.85 meters tall and very muscular. He was holding a half-meter long machete in his hand. I am indeed from Luotian Group. Who are you? Why are you blocking our way? Aren't you afraid that we will call the police? The dozen or so strong men in front of him seemed to have heard some huge joke and they all started sneering. Boy, I'll say it again. This has nothing to do with you. Get out of here as soon as possible. I'm in a good mood today, so I'll spare your life. If you keep saying that, I'll chop you off. Bang! Stop it, everyone. At this time, Xiao Yudi simply opened the car door and walked away, her brows furrowed and her face full of coldness. After hearing what the bald man said just now, Xiao Yudi knew that these ferocious guys in front of her were targeting her. Although she was very scared, she didn't want Li Yue to be implicated because of her. Are you from the West City Tiger Gang? Xiao Yudi saw the tiger head tattoo on the bald man's neck and recognized his identity. Boss, the Tiger Gang is an underground force in Shicheng District. The members of this gang are quite aggressive. The underground world in Los Angeles has been in turmoil recently because of the sudden rise of the Tiger Gang. I heard that the core leaders of the Tiger Gang are all desperate criminals. These guys kill people without blinking an eye. As she spoke, Xiao Yudi gently tugged at the corner of Li Yue's clothes, wanting Li Yue to escape back to the car with her. However, Li Yue shrugged and said with a smile, if you want to leave now, it may be too late. As Li Yue finished speaking, a roar was heard from behind him. The three off-road vehicles that had followed first also arrived here, blocking the retreat of Li Yue and the others. There were more than 20 strong men on both sides, who surrounded Li Yue and the other man tightly. Do you know who I am? I am Xiao Yudi. The Luotian Group is behind me. Do you want to die if you dare to touch me? Although Xiao Yudi was used to their ups and downs in the business world, she was still frightened when facing the ferocious Tiger Gang. At this moment, she could only move out of Luotian Group. The Luotian Group is a huge behemoth, and even these underground forces have to give it some face. As expected, when he heard the name of Luotian Group, a hint of fear flashed in the bald man's eyes. The reason why he did not use force right away was because of the strength of Luotian Group. HMPH. Xiao Yudi, don't be shameless and come with us honestly, or I will chop you, the driver, into human meat buns and make you eat them. Li Yue. Isn't the driver a human? TSK, even though I said I wanted to save your life, I didn't say I couldn't take off your clothes. President Xiao, you are famous beauty in Luocheng. We have long wanted to meet you. If you are obedient, we can be gentle. Otherwise. The members of the Tiger Gang smiled maliciously, and there was a gleam of lust in their eyes when they looked at Xiao Yudi. What a noise! If you don't want to tell me who is behind this, then don't tell me. Li Yue's expression was grim. These guys actually dared to tease Xiao Yudi in front of him. They were simply courting death. Snap! Li Yue moved extremely quickly. Before everyone in front of him could react, Li Yue appeared in front of the yellow-haired man closest to him. Li Yue's hand was like a pair of pliers, crushing the other person's wrist directly. For a moment, screams like those of a pig being slaughtered echoed in the quiet street. My hand! Help me, boss! Li Yue, who was at the 4th level of Qi refining, was now at the equivalent of the Xianqian realm in martial arts. He crushed the yellow-haired man's wrist so hard that it could not be reattached. Let me ask again, who is the mastermind behind this? What is your purpose? As he spoke, Li Yue threw the yellow-haired man, whose face turned pale with pain, several meters away, and he fell heavily to the ground. The yellow-haired man fainted and his life or death was unknown. For a moment, the people from the Tiger Gang were shocked by Li Yue's powerful skills and cold eyes. As one of the underworld forces in Los Angeles, the Tiger Gang has always been known for its daring and fighting spirit. Most of them are bloodthirsty people,
but the Li Yue in front of them is even more terrifying than them. Chapter 15. The Ruan family arrives. Li Yue's skills were so fast that no one present could see his movements clearly. Who is the mastermind behind this? Are you going to tell us now? As he spoke, Li Yue took a step forward. At that moment, the bold man and others all took a step back, looking at Li Yue with horror in their eyes. They were all good fighters who had been in street fights for many years, but they did not expect that Li Yue's move would be so amazing. The bold man couldn't imagine how terrifying the strength was needed to crush a person's hand bones. Damn it! How dare you attack my tiger gang? Destroy him for me! Seeing his men now curled up on the ground unable to move, the bold man waved his hand and more than 20 strong men rushed over waving steel bars and machetes. Li Yue just snorted coldly, and then his figure disappeared from the spot in an instant like a ghost. Bang bang bang! In just a few rounds, more than 20 strong men were lying on the ground. They lay on the ground and wailed non-stop. The screams that came one after another sounded very creepy. Of the more than 20 strong men in the venue, only the bold man was left. He was shaking as he held the machete. Xiao Yudi leaned against the body of the Maybach, her beautiful eyes wide open, full of surprise. Is this young master of mine a Superman? In Xiao Yudi's opinion, only a Superman could knock down more than 20 armed men at the same time in an instant. Are you a human or a ghost? The bold man's eyes were full of fear. Li Yue's powerful strength was completely beyond his imagination. More than 20 of his men were knocked down before they could even touch Li Yue's clothes. I am a very impatient person. Let me ask you again, who sent you here? Li Yue snorted coldly, a cold light flashed in his eyes. The powerful evil spirit frightened the bold man so much that his legs went limp and he collapsed right in front of Li Yue. Yes, it's the Zhu family. Zhu Jiwei spent a lot of money to hire our tiger gang and wanted to invite President Xiao to come over. The bold man didn't dare to hide anything and blurted out everything. The murderous aura emanating from Li Yue at this moment caused the temperature around him to drop sharply in an instant. He didn't expect that the Zhu family would be so desperate. Worried that the entire Zhu family would be destroyed, they actually wanted to kidnap Xiao Yudi to force Luotian Group to stop. Zhu Jiwei, right? It seems that the kick I gave him last time was not light enough. Originally, I didn't care about Li Yue of the Zhu family, but I didn't expect that Zhu Jiwei would be so ignorant of his own life and death. So don't blame me for being cruel. Get out of my way quickly, or don't blame me for being rude. Li Yue's voice was extremely cold. The bold man did not dare to be negligent and quickly kicked several younger brothers beside him. Stop pretending to be dead. Didn't you hear what this big brother said? Move your car out of the way. Although these guys were gritting their teeth in pain, they did not dare to slack off for a moment and limped away all the vehicles blocking the road. Li Yue glanced coldly at the people in front of him, then drove away with Xiao Yudi. Looking at the direction where Li Yue left, a hint of viciousness flashed in the bold man's eyes, and then he took out his mobile phone and made a call. Boss, something happened. I don't know where Xiao Yudi hired a driver from. All 20 of my brothers were injured. Li Yue drove back to Yanhu Yayuan Villa. Xiao Yudi was still a little scared and her pretty face was very pale. The tiger gang never acted reasonably, and they had no principles at all. Xiao Yudi couldn't imagine what would happen to her if she fell into their hands. Boss, I'm sorry for you today, otherwise. Xiao Yudi said with gratitude on her face, her beautiful eyes seemed full of spring water and tenderness. I told you that you are mine. I will leave the company's affairs to you and I will handle the rest. Li Yue said lightly. When Xiao Yudi heard this, a blush flashed across her pale face and she lowered her head shyly. After returning to the villa, seeing that Xiao Yudi was a little uneasy, Li Yue put on an apron and walked into the kitchen. When Xiao Yudi changed into her nightgown and went downstairs, she found the sound of cooking coming from the kitchen. Boss, why did you come into the kitchen? Xiao Yudi opened her red lips slightly, with a look of surprise on her face, as if she had discovered a new continent. She didn't expect that someone of Li Yue's status would actually cook by himself. It's obvious that his movements and techniques are very skilled. As she spoke, Xiao Yudi hurried into the kitchen and wanted to take the spatula from Li Yue. If Li Yue hadn't intervened today, the consequences would have been disastrous, not to mention that the other party was his boss. You go inside and rest. You were frightened tonight, so I'll cook. Li Huaye pushed Xiao Yudi out without any explanation. Wait a moment, the food will be ready soon. After a while, Li Huaye came out of the kitchen carrying 6 dishes in succession. Try it and see if it suits your taste. Xiao Yudi took a bite of the braised fish and put it into her mouth, and suddenly her eyes lit up. It's delicious. Your cooking skills are amazing, boss. Xiao Yudi never expected that the young master of this prominent status could cook better than herself. Her heart was pounding, and she felt more and more that she, the young master, was extremely mysterious. Although he has a very distinguished background, he does not have the arrogance of a superior. His boxing and kicking skills are just like those of the martial arts masters in action movies, and now he is even so good at cooking. Xiao Yudi couldn't imagine how happy a woman would be if she could marry Li Huaye. Facing Xiao Yudi's admiration, Li Huaye just smiled faintly. I have been taking care of Su Yunjin over the years and have already mastered her cooking skills. She has even obtained a first-level chef certificate. Boss, what should we do with the Zhu family? Should we call the police? Xiao Yudi clenched her fists and said angrily. Not for now, I will take care of this Zhu family. A cold light flashed in Li Huaye's eyes. He wanted to deal with not only the Zhu family, but also the Tiger Gang. Ring ring ring. Just then, the doorbell of the villa suddenly rang. Li Huaye and Xiao Yudi were both stunned, wondering who would come to them at this time. Xiao Yudi opened the door with some confusion, and found an old man with grey hair and gold-rimmed glasses standing outside. Who are you? Hello, I am the housekeeper of Villa number 6, is Mr. Li home? Hearing the conversation outside the door, Li Huaye raised his eyebrows, and then appeared in front of the door in a flash. He found that the old man in front of him seemed to have a trace of anxiety between his brows, and he was afraid that something had happened to the black energy that he saw with the eye of the dragon. Did something happen at Mr. Wan's house? When the butler saw how young Li Huaye was, a hint of suspicion flashed across his eyes. Are you Mr. Li? Something strange did happen at the villa tonight. Chapter 16. It's hard to be a good person. Old man, let's talk while we walk. Li Huaye nodded and prepared to go out. Seeing this, Xiao Yudi also wanted to follow, but was stopped by Li Huaye. It's nothing serious. You still have work to do tomorrow, so go to bed early. Xiao Yudi opened her red lips slightly and wanted to say something, but she nodded. Then boss, I'll wait for you to come back home. Looking at the departing backs of Li Huaye and the old housekeeper, Xiao Yudi felt somewhat confused. Villa number 6. I heard that an old man from the imperial capital lives there. Could it be that the boss knows some big shot in the imperial capital? But soon Xiao Yudi shook her head. Her boss was of great importance. As one of the 4 major families in Tianzhu, it is normal for the young master of the Li family to know important figures in the imperial capital. But Xiao Yudi was a little confused. Why would the big shot in Villa number 6 suddenly come and knock on the door at night? Walking in the park, Li Huaye looked up at the sky. It was covered with dark clouds tonight, and the moonlight and stars were basically invisible. Yunhu Yuan was already very quiet, and the road was even quieter at this moment, with only the chirping of insects coming from both sides of the road. Old sir, can you tell me what strange things happened in the Yuan family? If it weren't for some special circumstances, I'm afraid Mr. Yuan wouldn't have asked you to come to see me so late at night. Li Huaye said this very calmly, his tone so calm that he didn't seem surprised by the accident of the Yuan family. Mr. Li, my name is Zhang Feng, and I have been with the master for many years. You can just call me Lao Zhang. It's like this. For some reason, several servants in the house suddenly turned pale and felt unwell tonight. At first, the master thought it was food poisoning or some disease, but he didn't expect that not long after, the 2 parrots he raised also died suddenly. Although the 2 black dogs that were responsible for guarding the yard were not dead, they were lying on the ground motionless. As Zhang Feng spoke, he looked at Li Huaye with some curiosity. He just heard Xiao Yudi address Li Huaye. Unexpectedly, this young man turned out to be the boss of the female president of Luotian Group, which made him somewhat curious about Li Huaye's identity. What's more, after something strange happened at night, Mr. Wan actually asked me to come to his house in person to invite him, which is a very rare thing. Is that all? Are there any signs of illness among the people around Mr. Wan? For example, fainting or convulsions? Li Huaye asked softly. Because he had not made much progress in martial arts over the years, Li Huaye also learned some feng shui techniques. It's just that Li Ya's heart was solely on Su Yunjin before, and he just wanted to live an ordinary life, so he didn't delve too much into this aspect. But now that he has practiced the 9 Dragons divine controlling technique, Li Ya is like he has opened up his Ren and Du meridians, and many obscure things that he didn't understand before have been integrated one by one. Although he didn't know what the black gas he saw before was, he was sure that the black gas would either not explode or would kill people if it did. Sure enough, after hearing Li Ya's question, Lao Zhang was shocked and looked at Li Ya with some surprise. Mr. Li, you are right. The head of the family came back to see the old man today, but for some reason, he fainted and lost consciousness not long after. Li Ya nodded lightly. It seemed that it was just as he expected. Soon Li Ya and the other person arrived at Ruan's house. Although it was already late at night, the lights were still on inside and outside the house. The area of Villa number 6 was actually even larger than that of Villa number 1. There are now many more people coming and going in the yard, and many strong men in black suits are guarding the entrances and exits of the villa. Li Ya discovered that each of these people had extraordinary skills and agile steps, with slightly bulging temples. They were obviously martial artists, most of whom came from the military. Hearing the footsteps of Li Ya and the other man, the black-clad bodyguards instantly became alert. This is Mr. Li, the person the master specifically asked me to meet. Several bodyguards looked at Li Ya with some suspicion, but still nodded and followed the two in. Li Ya discovered that many medical staff had arrived at the scene and were treating the servants of the Ruan family. However, they all seemed confused and had not figured out what had gone wrong. Li Ya took a quick glance and found that all of these servants had pale faces and a dark cloud on their foreheads. Uncle Zhang, why did you bring this liar here? Ruan Mai, who was in the villa, came out immediately after seeing Li Ya. Hearing Ruan Mai's angry words, Zhang Feng was stunned and turned to look at Li Ya with some doubt. Mr. Li, do you know my young lady? There was some misunderstanding before. Har, misunderstanding. You are just a charlatan. I think you poisoned my family to find an excuse to deceive my grandfather. Ruan Mai has a good friend who works for the police. She knew that a fraud gang had recently come to Los Angeles. Coupled with Li Ya's sudden appearance, she had a preconceived idea that Li Ya was a member of this fraud gang. Now that her father has fallen ill and many unexpected events have occurred in the hospital, Ruan Mai blames all these problems on Li Ya. When the bodyguards in the courtyard heard Ruan Mai's words, their faces suddenly changed and they surrounded Li Ya. Each of them has a murderous aura, which is totally different from the ruffians in the Tiger Gang. It is obvious that they are all elite soldiers who have walked down from the battlefield. Zhang Feng was also feeling overwhelmed at this time and quickly stood in front of Li Ya. Miss, could this be a misunderstanding? My grandfather personally asked me to invite Mr. Li. Besides, on their way here, Mr. Li had already guessed what had happened in our family, which shows that Mr. Li is not a charlatan. Zhang Feng had a wry smile on his face. If he was indeed full of doubts about Li Ya before, he still knew Xiao Yudi. She is the female president of Luotian Group. How could Luotian Group be related to a fraud gang? Har, Uncle Zhang, you are careless. It is because he was the one who did it that he knows what happened in our family. Grandpa is old and always trusts people easily. I have already contacted Dr. Xu from Luo City to come here. I don't need you to come here to cheat people. Li Ya's face darkened. I only came to help because of Ruan Yunlong, the old war god who devoted his life to the Dragon Kingdom. Unexpectedly, his kindness was taken for granted and he was instead blamed by the other party. I came here for the old man's sake. If you don't need me, I'll leave. You guys take care of yourselves. After saying this, Li Ya turned around and left without any further ado. Har, you want to leave after I exposed your conspiracy? It's not that easy. Take it down for me. Chapter 17, Xu Ruoyun, the Chinese medical master. Following Ruan Mai's order, the many black-clad bodyguards in the courtyard walked directly towards Li Ya. A good dog doesn't block the road, get out of the way. There was a chill in Li Ya's voice, and his black eyes were so deep that several bodyguards subconsciously took a step back. However, when they reacted, they were immediately furious and rushed towards Li Ya. The bodyguards around Ruan Yunlong are all elites of the special forces and are very skilled. In particular, there are several warriors in the acquired realm, and their every move is full of vigor and power. I know you have some martial arts skills, But I didn't expect you to be so bold as to plot against my Ruan family. Today I will make you pay the price. Following Ruan Mai's roar, a dozen bodyguards in black attacked swiftly. Zhang Feng on the side had an extremely ugly expression on his face. He had not expected things to develop like this. He wanted to dissuade Ruan Mai, but she simply did not listen. Bang bang bang. However, within just a few breaths, a sound of fighting was heard in the yard. I saw that the dozen or so bodyguards in black were now all lying on the ground, grimacing in pain. Is this so exaggerated? Zhang Feng opened his mouth in surprise. He thought Li Huaye was just a rich young man from Luotian Group, but he didn't expect that he had such amazing skills. After hearing the noise in the yard, the many black-clad bodyguards who surrounded the villa all rushed towards the gate. In just a few seconds, 20 or 30 people gathered, and some even quietly reached their hands into their waists. Li Huaye's face changed. He had just started practicing the Nine Dragons' divine controlling technique and had barely stepped into the innate realm. Although his fists and feet have become very strong, he is still far from being fearless of firearms. Stop it, everyone! Just when the situation in the courtyard was tense, suddenly an angry shout was heard in the villa, and Wan Yunlong walked out with a grim expression. Mr. Li is my distinguished guest, what do you want to do? Hearing this, the faces of many bodyguards in black changed and they all stepped aside. Wan Yunlong quickly came to Li Huaye's side and said apologetically, I'm sorry, Mr. Li, my granddaughter has been spoiled since she was a child, please don't take it to heart. Seeing that the old god of war actually came out to chase him in person, Li Huaye's expression eased slightly. Since Miss Ruan doesn't like me, there's no need for me to stay here. It's late at night and I want to go back to sleep. Even if it was Wan Yunlong's face, Li Huaye didn't intend to give it this time. He had had enough of Su Yunjin before, and he didn't want to have to look at other people's faces in the future. Mr. Li, I hope you can do me a favor and come in to see my son's condition. I fought for my country in the early years and never returned home. I only have one son, and my wife passed away early due to illness caused by overwork. Ruan Mai, I apologize to you here. It's my fault for not bringing me up properly. I hope you don't mind. Li Huaye had already stepped out the door at this time, but after hearing Wan Yunlong's words, he thought about it and decided to stay. It was not that he was moved by Wan Yunlong, but that he thought of his deceased mother. Wan Yunlong hurriedly stepped forward and said, Mr. Li, I would like to thank you on behalf of the Ruan family. Li Huaye didn't say anything, just nodded, and then walked into the villa. When I arrived at the bedroom on the second floor, I saw several medical staff and a middle-aged man lying on the bed with a pale face. Mr. Li, this is my son Wan Shanhar. Can you tell me what's going on? Wan Yunlong asked with a frown. At this moment, the medical staff on the side were at a loss. They had tried all the tests they could, but still couldn't find out the cause. Li Huaye only took a glance and saw that the black air above Wan Shanhar's head was extremely dense, almost turning his entire head black. This black gas was exactly what he saw during the day, but he didn't expect it to be attached to Wan Shanhar now. After walking forward and taking his pulse, Li Huaye discovered that there were many strange little bugs in Wan Shanhar's body, which were constantly gnawing at his meridians. Now these strange black maggots are about to spread to their heart and abdomen. If we delay any further, they will probably eat into their heart and endanger our lives. Old man, I'm afraid that the head of the Ruan family has been hit by a black magic. Head curse. Wan Yunlong frowned slightly when he heard this, and his eyes seemed to be thinking about something. But at this moment, a burst of sneer came from the side. The medical staff looked at Li Huaye with disdain. General? Where did this charlatan come from to speak nonsense here? Kid, where did you come from? Have you read too many online novels? And you got hit by a black magic. Old man, I advise you to be more careful. There are many people who cheat and deceive people these days. Don't let them cheat you. That's right. It's a different era now. You charlatans don't even know how to update your rhetoric. Those who were invited by the Ruan family were all famous medical masters. These medical staff were all chief physicians of Los Angeles First Hospital and were elites in the medical field of Los Angeles. Although no one knows Wan Yunlong's identity as the god of war, the Ruan family is a well-known family in the imperial capital. In their eyes, Li Huaye was just a liar who wanted to climb the social ladder. Just then, Wan Mai pushed the door open and walked in.
Next to her was an old man with grey hair and a blue cloth bag on his back. Dr. Xu, you are here. Wan Yunlong's face lit up with joy when he saw the old man with grey hair and a blue cloth bag on his back. This old man is none other than Xu Ruoyan, the famous doctor in Luoshansu, also known as the master of traditional Chinese medicine, and the general manager of the Quanzhou region of the Longhua Traditional Chinese Medicine Association. Even if we look at the entire Dragon Kingdom, Xu Ruoyan is a well-known figure and a guest of honor of all major families. After all, birth, aging, sickness and death are the norm, and no one doesn't want to make friends with a miracle doctor. Although that acupuncture skill could not cure a death, it was enough to bring back the dead. Recently, because of some issues with medicinal materials, I came to Luocheng and was invited by Ruan Mai. After seeing Xu Ruoyan, the medical staff in the room were instantly in awe, their eyes full of admiration. For those working in the medical industry, Xu Ruoyan is the industry benchmark and a top figure in the field of medicine in Longhua. Not to mention them, even for the director of Los Angeles First Hospital, it would be extremely difficult to meet Xu Ruoyan. Brother Yunlong, I heard everything you said just now. How can you still be fooled by this young man? There is no such thing as a general in this world. It's just some magic tricks and lies. Xu Ruoyan chuckled. Grandpa, you heard me. I told you that this guy is a liar, but you didn't believe me. You should believe what Grandpa Xu says, right? Ruan Mai said unhappily. Wan Yunlong was caught in the middle. He looked at Xu Ruoyan and then at Li Ya, feeling a bit dilemma for a moment. Chapter 18 Wan Shanhe wakes up. As his friend for many years, he was naturally well aware of Xu Ruoyan's superb medical skills. Mr. Li, look at this matter. Seeing this, Li Ya did not argue, but just stood aside with his arms folded. Anyway, he didn't know Wan Shanhe, so he was already giving face to Wan Yunlong. After Xu Ruoyan glanced at Li Ya, he stepped forward and took his pulse, but his face suddenly turned gloomy the next second. Dr. Xu, how is my son? Brother Yunlong, the situation is critical. Shanhe has been poisoned and must be treated as soon as possible. If it's too late, my life might be in danger. However, this poison is like a maggot on the tassel bone. It may be difficult to remove it easily. Even I am not absolutely sure. Wan Yunlong's face turned very ugly when he heard this, and Ruan Mai's pretty face turned extremely pale. She begged quickly, Grandpa Xu, you must save my father. In her anxiety, the arrogant Ruan Mai's voice now had a hint of crying, and she had completely lost her previous strength. Xu Ruoyan nodded, then opened his package and took out 13 silver needles. The silver needle sparkled brightly under the light, even a little dazzling. Li Ya sniffed gently, and the moment the silver needle was taken out, he smelled a very strong medicinal fragrance. Apparently these 13 silver needles have been used all year round and have been soaked in various medicines. Li Ya knew that Xu Ruoyan was not just a name, but the problem with Wan Shanhe today was not just as simple as poisoning. After being burned by the flame, the silver needle hit 13 major acupoints on Wan Shanhe's body accurately with Xu Ruoyan's quick hand speed. The silver needle turned extremely black at a speed visible to the naked eye. The silver needle in Xu Ruoyan's hand was like a flying bee and a dancing butterfly. After a while, a lot of black poisonous blood was forced out of Wan Shanhe's body. At the same time, there is a strong, pungent fishy smell, which makes people feel dizzy, nauseous and vomiting. After such a short while, Xu Ruoyan was already sweating and panting. However, under his acupuncture, Wan Shanhe's complexion eased a lot, and his body no longer shook as constantly as before. Seeing this, Xu Ruoyan finally stood up straight, slowly breathed a sigh of relief, and began to prepare to remove the silver needle inserted into Wan Shanhe's body. Grandpa Xu, how is my dad? Is he out of danger? Ruan Mai hurried forward and asked anxiously. Xu Ruoyan nodded. Fortunately, I arrived in time and did not delay any further. I also did not allow irrelevant people to cause me any trouble. I am now out of danger. As Xu Ruoyan spoke, he glanced at Li Ya intentionally or unintentionally. Ruan Mai's pretty face suddenly turned cold when she saw this. Dr. Xu's expression clearly meant that Li Ya, this charlatan, almost killed Wan Shanhe. Grandpa, you saw it. I told you he was a charlatan, but you didn't believe me. Dad almost got into trouble. You charlatan, what are you still doing here? Get out of here now. Ruan Mai is now completely certain that Li Yue is the one who deliberately poisoned the Ruan family, and at this moment he even exudes murderous intent. Li Yue turned a blind eye to this, and just crossed his arms and sneered, "I'm not leaving because I want to see how you guys play Ruan Shanher to death." As soon as these words were spoken, the room fell into silence. The medical staff at Los Angeles First Hospital were all dumbfounded. In their opinion, Li Yue must be crazy. He actually said such things in front of the Ruan family and Dr. Shu, offending two big shots at the same time. Isn't he tired of living? Boy, are you crazy? Do you know what you are talking about? How dare you curse Patriarch Ruan? Are you looking for death? You didn't even know where you were when Dr. Shu was treating patients, and you dare to speak so arrogantly. Seeing Shu Ruoyan's ugly face, the medical staff hurriedly shouted angrily. Ruan Mai was so angry that she was shaking all over. If Ruan Yunlong hadn't stopped her, she would have probably taken action. Ruan Yunlong looked a little unhappy at this time, but after thinking about it, he suppressed his anger and said in a deep voice, "Mr. Li, what do you mean by this?" Seeing that Ruan Yunlong had not yet turned hostile, Li Yue could not help but sigh at the demeanor of this god of war. After all, according to the script, Ruan Yunlong would probably have attacked himself by now. "I told you before, old man, that Patriarch Ruan was not poisoned but was bewitched." Dr. Shu's acupuncture method is indeed unique. It uses acupuncture points to force out the toxins. But the problem is that there is not only poison in Ruan Jiaozhu's body, but also many poisonous insects. His real-life threat comes from the poisonous insects. A lot of poison has indeed been forced out, and the insects have been suppressed by the silver needles for a short time, but it won't be long before they will rebound more violently. By then, even the Golden Immortal will be unable to help. Before Li Yue could finish his words, he was interrupted by the doctors in white coats. "Bar. Where on earth did you read this from? It's a sad thing that there are still people with such backward thinking in this era. You are someone who has been brainwashed by online literature, and you dare to question Dr. Shu. Get out now." What Li Yue said was completely contrary to modern medicine and did not fit in with the medical scope understood by these Los Angeles doctors. What's more, Shu Ruoyan is the god of the medical field in their eyes, so how could they allow a young boy like Li Yue to question him? Shu Ruoyan simply snorted in disdain and continued to remove the silver needles from Ruan Shanher's body. As the silver needle was pulled out, Ruan Shanher's complexion became better and better. When there was only the last silver needle left in the heart area of his chest, Ruan Shanher's eyelids even twitched and he woke up instantly. "What's wrong with me?" Ruan Shanher, lying on the hospital bed, looked at the people around him with a puzzled look on his face. A miracle doctor. He is indeed the miracle Dr. Shu. This is truly a miracle cure. You are worthy of being the master of Dragon Country's medical field. Boy, what do you have to say now? Everyone in the room was sneering and mocking Li Yue. Ruan Shanher's awakening was undoubtedly the biggest slap in the face to Li Yue. Even Ruan Yunlong frowned this time, his eyes full of displeasure. However, facing the accusations from everyone, Li Yue remained calm and unmoved. Ruan Mai told Ruan Shanher everything that had happened. At this moment, Ruan Shanher's brows suddenly turned upside down, and his eyes were full of murderous intent. He didn't expect that when he returned to Los Angeles for a meal, he was almost ambushed and killed. "Someone! Capture him for me!" Following Ruan Shanher's roar, the bodyguards outside the door rushed in quickly and pointed their guns directly at Li Yue. Chapter 19 Ruan Yunlong's Promise. But even facing those black gun muzzles, Li Yue stood there with his expression unchanged. Ruan Yunlong admired his courage. "Dr. Shu, thank you so much this time. My Ruan family owes you a big favor." Ruan Shanher looked at Shu Ruoyan with gratitude and said. Shu Ruoyan just waved his hand calmly, and said calmly, "It's okay, Brother Yunlong and I are old acquaintances. I am not sure if I can save you today. The main reason is that you are lucky. I will remove this last silver needle and prescribe some medicine for you to take good care of yourself. It won't take long for you to recover." As he spoke, Shu Ruoyan prepared to pull out the last silver needle from Ruan Shanher's heart. "I advise you not to do this." Li Yue on the side sneered. "That silver needle is the last straw that can suppress the poisonous insect. Without it, his heart will be devoured by the poisonous insect very soon." If Li Yue remembered correctly, there was some trade relationship between the Ruan family and his own family.
The most important thing is that the Ruan family is also one of the top families in Longwa. There is still no clue about the murder of his mother. Li Yue does not want any major changes to happen in the big families in Longwa. Boy, I think you are really looking for death, and you are still stubborn. Master Wan has already woken up, and you are still here saying these deceitful and deceptive words. Before Xu Ruoyan and Wan Shanher could say anything, the medical staff could no longer bear it and pointed at Li Yue and cursed him. Boy, you dare to do something bad to my Ruan family. I will make sure you pay for it. Wan Shanher, who was lying on the hospital bed, had a cold look in his eyes. Although Wan Yunlong had some doubts in his heart, he just frowned and didn't say much. After all, it was a fact that his son had a rosy face and had woken up. Xu Ruoyan stepped forward and pulled out the last silver needle. Wan Shanher also exhaled at this time and felt that his strength had been restored to his whole body. Puff! But at this moment, everyone discovered that Wan Yunlong, who had just been about to sit up, actually spat out a mouthful of black blood, and then fell directly on the bed and lost consciousness. Beep beep. The medical equipment nearby also issued a violent alarm at this time. At this moment, everyone in the room was stunned. All this happened too suddenly and caught them completely off guard. How is this possible? The pulse is disordered and the vitality is declining rapidly. This shouldn't be possible. Cold sweat instantly broke out on Xu Ruoyan's forehead, and he hurriedly applied acupuncture again, but this time no matter how hard he stimulated the acupoints, it had no effect at all. Seeing that Wan Shanher was breathing out more than breathing in and his life force was gradually disappearing in an instant, everyone in the room couldn't help but turn their attention to Li Yue. At this moment, an idea emerged in everyone's mind. Could it be that what he said was true? Dr. Xu, what's going on? Wan Yunlong looked extremely anxious, as he only had this one son. Brother Yunlong, I don't know either. The toxins have clearly been excreted, but why is there still so much congestion in the body? And it's as if the acupuncture points on his body have lost their perception. Acupuncture has no effect at all. This was the first time that Xu Ruoyan encountered such a situation, and he was a little at a loss for a moment. Mr. Li, do you have any solution? Wan Yunlong also reacted at this time, realizing that Li Yue might not have lied, and his voice trembled for a moment. This is none of my business. I have reminded you several times in a row, but you insist on calling me a liar. There is nothing I can do about it. I just said that I stayed here just to see how you guys would kill Wan Shanher. Congratulations on doing it successfully. After saying this, Li Yue turned around and left. Wan Yunlong was regretting his decision to the core at this moment. Li Yue did try to stop them several times just now, but no one believed them, which led to the current tragedy. Wan Mai, who was standing by, was struck by lightning. She never thought that this charlatan who she had ridiculed as a fraud and was about to be sent to prison was actually telling the truth. Seeing her father's breath getting weaker and weaker, and his father already half a step away from death, Wan Mai's face turned pale. Thump! Li Yue, who was about to push the door and leave, paused. Wan Mai actually knelt down in front of Li Yue, with a pleading look on her face. I'm sorry, it was all my fault before. I blamed you wrongly and misunderstood you. Please save my father's life. Tears kept falling from Wan Mai's eyes. At this moment, she no longer had the arrogance she had before facing Li Yue. However, Li Yue just sneered at this. I have saved him many times. He died at your own hands. It has nothing to do with me. Hearing this, Wan Mai felt even more heartbroken. Just as Li Yue said, they were reminded by Li Yue many times during the rescue process. However, he turned a blind eye to everything and even mocked her. At this moment, Wan Mai really wanted to die. Wan Mai kept begging in a very humble tone, but Li Yue ignored her and was about to leave in big strides. Mr. Li, please stay. At this moment, Wan Yunlong flashed in front of Li Yue with a guilty look on his face. Mr. Li, this is all my fault. I clearly trusted you, but I chose to doubt you. I hope you can save my son for my sake. I am willing to swear on behalf of the Ruan family that if you need anything in the future, the Ruan family will definitely help you with all our strength. As he spoke, he bowed deeply to Li Yue. However, Li Yue just looked at him indifferently and still said nothing. Seeing this, Wan Yunlong looked at Li Yue, then at his son, gritted his teeth and pleaded. Mr. Li, I swear as Wan Yunlong that as long as you come to my rescue today, I, Wan Yunlong,
will do my utmost to support you regardless of life or death. When Li Huaye heard this, the corners of his mouth finally curled up. Although Wan Yunlong, the god of war of the Dragon Kingdom, deserves respect, even a clay man still has some temper. The Wan family has humiliated him many times, so Li Huaye is not a good person either. Wan Yunlong's two oaths seem to be the same, but in fact they are completely different. The Wan family is one of the top families in Longhua. Their strength should not be underestimated, but that's all they can do. Wan Yunlong was one of the three great war gods in the northern border of the Dragon Kingdom. Even though he has retired, his status and connections are unmatched by ordinary forces. This level of identity is what Li Huaye really cares about, and Wan Yunlong naturally understands this. Li Huaye knew that his mother had been in trouble that year, and the person behind it was probably powerful enough to cover the sky with one hand in Long Country. Otherwise, with the strength of the Li family, they wouldn't have had any clues for so many years, and they wouldn't even dare to investigate. If we can win over the old god of war and the Wan family to our side, it will be a great help. Mr. Wan, if that's the case, I hope you'll keep your word. I'll help you this time for your sake, but I can't guarantee success. Chapter 20: A True Miracle. If the silver needle in the heart is not removed, I have 80 to 90% confidence. But even if we try our best now, I'm afraid we'll only have 10% left. Li Huaye shook his head and said helplessly. Hearing what he said, Xu Ruoyan, who was standing beside him, suddenly looked extremely ugly. After saying that, Li Huaye turned around and walked towards the bed, stepping past Ruan Mai without even looking at her. Ruan Mai's delicate body trembled. She looked at her father and then at Li Huaye. She actually knelt down and walked directly to Li Huaye's side. Everyone in the room was shocked when they saw this. They knew how proud Miss Ruan was, but they didn't expect that she would go to this extent today and kneel beside Li Huaye. A trace of heartache flashed across Wan Yunlong's eyes. He wanted to go forward and help him up, but he controlled himself. My granddaughter is really willful and capricious, and this time she will learn a lesson. This world is not as simple as she imagined. Although the Wan family is powerful, it is not impossible to be overthrown. Looking at his son lying on the bed, Wan Yunlong sighed heavily, and a cold light flashed in his eyes. At this moment, Li Huaye placed his hand on Wan Shanher's meridians, and after a brief expiration, his brows furrowed. At this moment, the situation inside Wan Shanher's body was much worse than before. All these poisonous insects had revived and began to devour his meridians frantically. Li Huaye reached out and took Xu Ruoyan's silver needle, and stabbed it directly into his heart. This scene scared everyone present so much that they couldn't help but gasp. Xu Ruoyan on the side subconsciously wanted to stop it, but swallowed the words back when they reached his lips. Li Huaye circulated the little spiritual energy in his body, and then it flowed into Wan Shanher's body through the silver needles, helping him to strengthen his heart meridian. Under Li Huaye's spiritual energy, these poisonous insects died quickly like ice and snow melting. In just a few breaths, Li Huaye successfully protected Wan Shanher's heart and saved his life. The alarm from the monitoring equipment in the house, which had been ringing continuously, finally stopped at this moment. Seeing Wan Shanher's breathing gradually becoming even, everyone widened their eyes and were shocked. This is simply a miracle. This is the real miracle doctor. Xu Ruoyan's pair of somewhat cloudy eyes were now wide open, full of disbelief and shock. Several silver needles were inserted into Wan Shanher's body, using spiritual energy to continuously flush his meridians and kill all the poisonous insects. If Xu Ruoyan had not blindly given the acupuncture before, Li Huaye would not have had to be so tedious. The spiritual energy cultivated through the Nine Dragons' divine control technique is extremely strong, and this ordinary poisonous insect cannot stop him. As time slowly passed, cold sweat began to seep out of Li Huaye's forehead. After all, he had only been practicing martial arts for a short time, and his own realm was still relatively low. All the dormant poisonous insects in Wan Shanher's body revived, so Li Huaye could only use his spiritual energy to kill them all, which consumed a lot of his body. When only a quarter of the spiritual energy in Li Huaye's body was left, all the poisonous insects in Wan Shanher's body were finally expelled by him. Everyone could see with their own eyes that Wan Shanher's complexion had returned to its rosy state and his body was no longer shaking violently. The vitality that was almost dissipated began to slowly recover. Li Huaye took a scalpel from the table and quickly cut open Wan Shanher's palm. Immediately, a large amount of black blood gushed out.
Looking at the smelly and poisonous blood flowing all over the ground, Shu Ruoyan felt extremely ashamed. Previously, he thought he had eliminated a large amount of toxins, but he didn't expect that he had eliminated less than 1/5. After the blood in Wan Shanhar's palm turned back to red, Li Huaye looked at Shu Ruoyan standing beside him. Shu Ruoyan was a little at a loss for a moment, and the two of them stared at each other. "Why are you looking at me? Bandage him. You are miracle doctor, do you still need me to teach you this?" Li Huaye walked aside speechlessly. "Okay, Dr. Li, I'll bandage the wound right away." Shu Ruoyan nodded and bowed respectfully, then used gauze to help Wan Shanhar treat his palm. At this moment, the way he looked at Li Huaye had completely changed, and his eyes were full of admiration. He had no idea how Shu Ruoyan had done it just now, and he actually saved Wan Shanhar's life. At this moment, everyone in the room couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief when they saw Wan Shanhar, whose breathing was even and who was no longer in danger even though he had not yet woken up. If the current head of the Ruan family were to be born, it would inevitably cause a shock to the Dragon Kingdom. Ruan Yunlong turned his head and looked into the room. There was a cold light in the eyes of the medical staff from Los Angeles First Hospital. "Everyone, I will definitely give you the rewards you deserve for what happened today. Of course, I hope you won't spread rumors. Don't worry, old man. We are just doing a routine checkup today. Nothing happened. That's right, we just came to do a simple physical examination. Nothing happened and we didn't see anything." Then these medical staff tumbled out of the Ruan family, and before leaving, they did not forget to engrave Li Huaye's appearance in their hearts. They were just extremely shocked that a young man who was only in his 20s actually possessed such magical means. After Dr. Shu bandaged the wound, Wan Shanhar took his pulse again and found that his breathing was very stable and his physical condition was even better than before. Shu Ruoyan widened his eyes, totally unable to imagine how Li Huaye did it. "Li, Dr. Li. I was blind before, please don't mind it." Shu Ruoyan came to Li Huaye's side, bowed respectfully, his face full of shame. Li Huaye quickly waved his hands. "Senior Shu, please don't call me a miracle doctor. I don't deserve this title." Others may not know, but Li Huaye is very clear that this is not medical skill at all. He is simply utilizing the powerful spiritual energy of his own to perform forced treatment. On the contrary, Shu Ruoyan's medical skills are really superb. He applies medicine on the silver needles and then stimulates the acupoints with unique techniques. If these poisonous insects were not extremely difficult to deal with, it would probably not be his turn to take action. However, Shu Ruoyan and others only regarded Li Huaye's words as humble words. "Mr. Li, thank you very much for this time." Ruan Yunlong looked at Li Huaye solemnly and said in a deep voice, "A gentleman's word is as good as his bond. The promise I made earlier stands by its terms. From now on, the Ruan family and I will support you as long as you need us, regardless of life or death." As their words fell, a strong aura emanated from Ruan Yunlong's body. This was a promise made as a military leader, and he would never regret it until his death. Li Huaye nodded with satisfaction. Only then did he realize that Ruan Mai was still kneeling towards him, with her head lowered and a look of guilt on her face. "Get up, I don't have any New Year's money to give you." After saying that, Li Huaye and Ruan Yunlong turned around and left. Ruan Mai trembled when she heard the voice, and she stared in the direction of Li Huaye in a daze. Chapter 21 Three-Party Cooperation. Everyone present was looking at the young man meditating in the corner, and no one would think it was the second one. For the rest of the time, he stayed with Baozi. After 2 days of affectionate time, he and Shubucho went down to the CI under the Zhejiang Bridge. This is the first time in all these years that the mute slave has had such a reaction. We'll know when we get there and see what other reactions the mute slave has. Feng Wanlin said. The inside of the palace is a world of its own, with sacred mountain waterfalls, flowing water, tall mountains and beautiful peaks, and all kinds of scenery. Unsurprisingly, the Huihar people couldn't even answer the question about Huarmingxuan's incense. Their noses were filled with the scent of lotus flowers, but everyone knew that this incense had nothing to do with lotus flowers. The sun is shining brightly today, mother. How about we go to the yard and play mahjong? Yao suggested with a smile, looking at the bright autumn sun outside. Not only was Lu Yu in front of him extremely strong, but he also had no way of controlling Lu Yu 100% with his energy, so for a moment, Iderhide felt extremely helpless. How did the murderer find these people? Yang Ruyu suddenly muttered as he looked at the information on the projector. He frowned, took a sip of wine, and a smile flashed in his eyes. Feng Wanlin's junior sister, if he married her, he wouldn't have to work so hard to win over Feng Wanlin. However, his regret only lasted for a moment. What he earned now was just a number, and he had to make money in his pocket in the end. Seeing the determination in Mo Shizer's eyes, Mo Yuanqing shouted angrily, but Mo Shizer did not stop obediently. Li Yu and Yao Yu were the only two people left in the hall. The atmosphere was dull and no one spoke first. Xianyan struggled to slowly focus his unfocused gaze on the doctor's face. The corners of his mouth twitched, but he couldn't utter a word. As she thought about it, Jing Yanqin's head gradually became heavy. She sighed softly and slowly closed her eyes. She needed to rest before facing the unknown tomorrow. Guan Yang didn't say anything. The man in front of her was enough for her two sisters to handle. Now all Huan Yang had to do was to wait until the man's blood boiled and he wanted to enjoy himself with her sisters, and then help her sister suck the man's yarn energy dry. I was completely stunned by Fan Yi's mother and had no idea how to stop her. Fan Yi was in a similar situation to me, he couldn't do it at all. But Fan Yi was still rational, at least he took advantage of the opportunity to put on his pants. 2 days. Jing Yunshin stared at Li Desi in surprise for half a second, then nodded to show that she understood. Li Desi saw that she had nothing else to do and left. I had already stepped on that thing and crushed it into a ball. But judging from the long black hair, it was probably a poisonous creature like a spider. When these words were spoken, many people were stunned for a moment, but then, a lot of noises were heard. Some were skeptical, some did not believe, but more people were just looking forward to the show. From him, Liu Xiang learned that the military pay was actually squeezed out of the people. The court had already issued it, but it was robbed by Zhongshan and others on their way. Wang Qinian did not care about the trial that Mr. Kel'Thuzad was conducting. There would always be those who thirst for power among the mags in Dalaran. Zamperini actually doesn't quite understand the market situation right now, but De Laurentiis does. Cavarni is a player with a price but no demand in Italy. Don't be sentimental here, let's go find Austin first. I've searched this place several times but couldn't find him. Lin Chen reminded on the communicator. Richard didn't answer her, but smiled. Although the move used by Emir was powerful, it was not complicated. It was just to take out the power of the heart and throw it out. It was very easy to dodge. Richard didn't believe that Srood would be defeated by such a move. The attack of Lame Sai at the bottom of the building became more and more intense, especially after casualties, which aroused the blood and murderous intent of most people. Zhang Zhao and Guo Rong looked down from the edge of the building. Lame Sai pointed at the gate and shouted to kill. If it weren't for this time and this scene, he really looked like a general commanding a war in ancient times. Although those big families are all obsessed with money, to be honest, they still need to maintain their reputation in essence. The so-called reputation is what later generations call gentlemanly demeanor. Brother Chu Yun, wait for me. Before Alamu had time to sit down and drink a sip of water, he had no choice but to follow Chu Yun out. Chu Nyo, however, seemed to walk over nonchalantly, grabbed the ram by the neck and threw it out. It fell to the ground not far from the fire pit with a bang, but it did not die, but just prevented it from walking around. My dear disciple, if you quit the voice channel again, I will call the police and report you for betraying your master and ancestors. This was the first sentence Han Yu said after entering the voice channel. It was obvious that he was still brooding over what happened just now, and his expression was full of deep resentment. When Cao Cao's 6 generals saw Liu Biyu running away, they did not chase him. Instead, they led their horses back to Cao Cao's camp like Liu Biyu did. Just like the necessary conditions before a wizard can chant magic, each character contains more than 1,000 historical images. Feng Liu smiled. Originally, he didn't intend to kill these people because it would bring him a lot of trouble. According to the ranking of official positions in the ancient Qin Empire, the Prime Minister is one of the highest positions besides the Emperor, and according to the records on the stone tablet outside the city, the tomb of the first Emperor should be in the core palace area. Taking a deep breath, the leader of the southern expedition slowly walked into the city gate. This was the first time he actually entered the Fire Tribe's base. But because it is much stronger than in the original drama, Uncle Ju and the others did not leave any ink lines on it. The only successful one was the simplified version of the taboo totem tattoo. The rest has become the dust of history. However, at this moment, a fragrant breeze blew, and Liu Wuqing was seen coming to the roof with her long hair loose and wearing a bright red palace dress. "Damn it, my brain is crazy," Zhuoxi said, slapping his head, and then thought for a while. "No, I'm at a disadvantage. You have to let your apprentice call me grandpa." The journey was still long, and Lillian didn't hear her voice at all. Besides, there was a large group of people staring at her in front of her, and she didn't have the extra energy to see that far. Chapter 22 Xiao Yudi's Shock. In this way, after the Zhucheng area was completely resolved, the entire area south of the capital was completely conquered by Qin Yi. As for the rest, it is just as Zhang Yaoyang's views on some aspects: let him be strong as he can, the breeze will blow over the hills; let him be arrogant as he can, the bright moon will shine on the river. Chen Fengyu himself was a grandmaster in the middle stage of the transformation realm, while Ji Yunji was just a first-rate internal strength warrior, so naturally he was a little disdainful. At this time, when Ren Qiuyue was holding back her tears and dared not say a word, she looked at Qin Yi with fear, and was scared from the bottom of her heart. This fruit is so fragrant. Even though he has lived for so many years and has seen countless delicacies from the mountains and the sea and tried countless elixirs, at this moment, he still can't help but drool. The streets of Jicheng were in chaos and noisy. Gao Jinli opened the door and looked outside. He knew that it was the army arresting ordinary people. He prayed for them in his heart. Just as he was about to turn around, he found a package on the threshold. Gao Jinli stuck his head out to look around and saw that there was no one, so he picked up the package and turned around to close the door. The mammoth was more than 6 meters tall. When riding on its back, everyone discovered that flames were burning several kilometers behind them. Huge columns of magma rose from the ground into the air like a scepter from hell, and the surrounding area had become a sea of fire. Although his sea of consciousness was fun, it couldn't be used for a long time, which dampened his original excitement and joy. He couldn't keep it open for a long time, which meant that he couldn't immediately guard against the arrival of unknown things at any time. On the way, Yang Miazhen and Wang Minute decided not to tell anyone about the marriage proposal for the time being, and would make it public after the matchmaker and betrothal gifts arrived. Up to now, the Red Turban Army has only been making trouble in Junan County. It is estimated that no one outside has noticed this emerging army. The clasped hands were broad and thickly calloused, full of strength, and separated as soon as they touched. Xiao Pei looked at 0. With a puzzled expression. He didn't expect that she actually knew Mu Xiao. Chen Fan did not hide anything from them. Neither the Walong clan nor Ying Caichen were outsiders. Having said this, Zheng Yinyin paused, emitting a peaceful aura, and said with a smile, "I have the blood of the auspicious beast Qilin. In the future, I will inherit the responsibilities of the Qilin clan, become an imperial teacher or travel around the world. Marriage will be a constraint for me." Li Qianchen frowned slightly. Marriage was an issue he had always wanted to avoid. Before he was released from the reformatory, he had already started looking for someone to investigate the whereabouts of these people. It's obvious that he never thought this day would come, nor did he think that others would take such a risk. "My existence is indeed unimportant, but there is no reason for you to continue to laugh at me like this." There is some truth in what Jiang Shen said. Ying Jinghuai was pulled in by her. Even if she felt that he was not suitable and wanted to kick him out, she couldn't just tell him to get out. Otherwise, how could Jiang Shen survive in this circle in the future? "Jiang Hao, Zhu Zhu, there are many things I don't understand. Why don't we go to the island during the day? Why do we have to go to the island at night? This island is my home. What else can we do if we go there in broad daylight?" At this moment, the holy elephant saw that these treasures he had collected with great effort were destroyed in the blink of an eye, and the huge beast pupils suddenly turned red. But if it was a doctor, someone from the imperial hospital, or if that person had only just begun to learn the art of medicine, the guide was still leading their way. There was no road at all in this endless wilderness. If it weren't for the guide, Zhu Yang and the others would definitely get lost. "Leng Morchen will be here soon, and I will take him home. Maybe when he sees familiar things, he will remember something." He glanced uneasily behind the curtain. Princess Xuning and Princess Yu also looked puzzled. This should not have been a pre-arranged event. Delong did not say much about the order issued to Xiong Yongtai, because this was the power of the Ministry of National Defense, and he, Xiong Yongtai, had the right to issue orders to generals' offices in various places. After Nini woke up, she opened her eyes and found her mother beside her. It had been a long time since she had been able to see her mother when she woke up. Xian thought about every step she had taken in the past 3 years. It was not an exaggeration to describe some moments as thrilling. If it were not for DeLong's support at the critical moment, Xian herself would not dare to imagine what the current situation is. Will the Qing dynasty change? I looked up and met his cold eyes. My heart trembled and I immediately looked away. Prince Gong saw that the two masters and servants had turned against each other and added fuel to the fire. He hoped that Yuan Shikai would take this opportunity to rise up in rebellion. Then he could eliminate Yuan Shikai as a traitor and take over his current army. Behind the joking man was a calmer man, tall and thin, wearing glasses. He grabbed the shoulder of the man named Delang and glanced at the corner. At 10 a.m., Su Yingmai smiled tactfully and elegantly in front of a group of reporters, and finally reached this step. At the new product launch conference, Su Yingmai won a lot of impression points for the new product with her very elegant temperament and image. Yu Yao looked at her painting carefully and was quite satisfied. This painting was extraordinary and it seemed that she had made great progress. If Mr. Yushan saw it, he would be very happy. Speak clearly, how much is £1? Gao Jingzong and Chen Ying shouted almost at the same time. After Gao Jingzong and Chen Ying finished speaking, they immediately shut up. Nan Gubwa also looked her up and down. Alas, Xue Jin could only choose such a defective girl when choosing a maid. What kind of life is this? Isn't it said that the Zhu family is very wealthy? Shimen Chushue's cheeks suddenly felt cold, as if a breeze had blown past him. After a breath, he suddenly turned around. Mrs. Lin told Lin Qinghan the seriousness of the matter. If you don't apologize, there will be a rift between husband and wife, and you will regret it then. But why, when he took out the ring with hope, did she run away without saying a word? The golden energy flowed on the fingertips of the enchantress like an elf. Her eyes moved slightly as she looked at the powerful men from the soul-devouring valley and the bloodthirsty Bat clan around her. A faint smile appeared on her charming face. Finally, the conclusion was reached that all the people who fell ill were bitten by a mutated mosquito, and these mosquitoes were the ones produced after the corpses rotted. Gao Jingzong was very conscientious. He sold the smelted steel at 10 coins per kati, which is equivalent to about 30,000 yuan per ton in later generations. Of course, no matter what they thought, they would never have thought that what if this phone was not bought by Chen Dazi, but given to Chen Dazi by Mr. Lang. Chapter 23 Shopping. This made him very distressed, because after giving part of the little money he had left to the martial arts school, he spent the whole money on food, and he was already stretched to the limit. Field of view trackers are similar to human visual detection, tracking only visual targets as seen, rather than using over-the-horizon radar to detect aerial targets. By the way, are you here to look for Brickolan? A trace of reluctance suddenly appeared in Meeker's eyes. However, what puzzled him was that during the first month of training, everything was calm and peaceful. Blue Star wins. Who will be the next challenger? The black-clad referee announced after a blue-haired elf man defeated a barbarian with one sword in the fighting arena. As Jiang Meili was talking, she probably became really unhappy, so she directly grabbed the back of Wang Lang's hand, and with a har-hum, she bit it hard. He formed seals with his hands, and all the original energy in his body condensed into one point, turning into a huge snowflake, shooting straight towards Lin Hao. As long as the news is released, no one will not be tempted. Even a person who is half a step to the supreme will come and beg to accept it. Hua Wuqi saw that Dai Qian had prepared a lot of packages, as well as a lot of all-terrain vehicles to assist in mountain transportation and a lot of tools for civil engineering. It's difficult, too difficult. At the beginning, I only had the strength of a 5th grade magic god and a 4th grade fighting god, and Dark Moon Miqing was already a top-level fighting god and magic god. So even though I fought her together with the golden armored god of war, we were still defeated. She sealed my fighting infant and all my meridians, and even my demon infant was almost sealed by her. The artists from Huanyu originally wanted to exaggerate the Huang family after Li Shangshan left, but when they saw this scene, they immediately shrank their necks and didn't even have the courage to look up at Li Shangshan. If Li Shangshan knew about their gossip behind their backs, he would slap them in the face in person, which would be unbelievable. Li Yong requested some supplies from his superiors for the troops that were about to enter Xinjiang, including goggles and sunglasses for individual soldiers. In addition to goggles that can be used for combat in windy and sandy weather, sunglasses are even more indispensable equipment. Do you really want to know? After looking at Yue Fengfeng's back, Jessica Jung raised her beautiful eyebrows when she thought of the admiring expression on Kim Taehyun's face when she talked about Ewing Fengfeng just now. Just when Ji Minute was embarrassed and didn't know what to say, Liang Shan came to the rescue at the right time. With the appearance of Lee Saman and others, the scene suddenly became lively. Needless to say, the reporters were definitely pointing their cameras at them, and the fans of UNEE saw their idol come out, and the overwhelming cheers made the scene even more lively. Oh! Liu Yihua rolled his eyes. But he felt that Wu Jing was right to say that he was indeed more likely to stir up trouble. No, no. I will never cover up for anyone. This is my duty. You are too polite, young master. Mayor Jiang said as a matter of course. Li Shangshan put his phone away, looked at Li Yunhui with a smile, and walked out of the alley first. Li Yunhui was full of doubts about Li Shangshan at this time, and had many questions in her mind, but seeing that Li Shangshan had no intention of speaking, she could only follow Li Shangshan out of the alley. Watching Yu Yingfeng slowly walk towards Han Kaiying, not only Han Kaiying felt a little bit of anticipation in her heart, but also Jiang Hudong, Shen Zhenghuan and others beside her were very much looking forward to it. They wanted to know how this most affectionate man could resolve his affair. After saying that, Wang Yufei strode away. As she opened the door and was about to leave, she turned back and smiled at Liu Yihua, then walked out and closed the door. Xu Yuanqing, who had been watching silently, couldn't tell what he felt at the moment. He only knew that this was the law of the world and that losers would be abandoned by the world. It doesn't matter even if I lose my life. I must bring them to justice. Wang Yang must be arrested, but this person who is as powerful as Wang Yang must also be arrested. Zhen Ji said seriously. That depends on what you can give. If the chips are not enough, I'm too lazy to move. The savage shrugged, but his eyes kept scanning Cao Fei's body. The best thing that hooligans are good at is bullying people, and most of these young hooligans under my command are used to being arrogant. Now that they see that Zhu Jiayu doesn't dare to fight us, they are all trying to find ways to taunt them in the most vicious way. You all go out, I want to have a good chat with Chu Jun. Yan Long said and waved to Chu Jun. She said she was going to leave the next day. She had been staying at home for a week and was going back to Hong Kong for work. Bai Ling tried to keep her, but she insisted on leaving. Later, I wanted to tell her about my marriage to Bai Ling, but I didn't tell her in the end. No one looked at me, and Yang Hongling didn't come either. Half a month later, I was tried in court and sentenced to 2 years in prison for bribery. When I stood in the court and heard the verdict, I did not obey and filed an appeal. Wu Chenyu fell on his back, and the last place his gaze rested was the clear sky. Captain, why do you want to do such a thing? Taking civilians as hostages is too much. Kira, who was listening at the side, finally couldn't help but ask, with a stubborn expression of disapproval on his face. Zhuqiulia didn't let the guards chase after her, he must have known it was her. So, she really didn't need to rush, Zhuqiulia would definitely give her time to prepare how to deal with him. The secret spy agency has been established for 100 years, and its headquarters is located in the basement of the Western Xia Imperial Palace. Its scale and complex structure are not much inferior to the Imperial Palace on the ground. The current chief of the secret spy is a 60-year-old man named Lu Jiang. Li Yuanchang is the second generation of Western Xia king he serves. Chapter 24. Remember to attend my wedding. After drinking a few cups, some guys became bolder and came over to toast. Ryushin also accepted everyone who came, drinking one cup after another as if he was drinking water, so generous that Ibuki Suika and the others were ashamed. Because once Wo-chan senses hostility, she will attack her opponent without hesitation. For this reason, Dongfang Yao repeatedly reminded her not to act rashly. Seeing that the other party was indeed not seriously injured, Yang Jiangiju pulled her up without caring that she was still dizzy. Stupid, it's winter clothes are made of fleece. Zhu Yang glanced at me with disdain and walked out of the ward with his hands in his pockets. When the others saw that the two old men didn't even give face to the president of the Beast Tamers Union, they couldn't help but feel a little more wary of the two old men's identities. He thought that Qin Zheng was his life partner, and it seemed pretty good to be able to play and fight with her all his life. The word, acting like a spoiled child, is not unfamiliar to her, but she has never been the one to act like a spoiled child, but the one who watches others act like a spoiled child. At home, her younger sister is also quite good at acting like a spoiled child. Xiao Xiao thought that the name of Dragon Bird Mad Blade was extremely cool and awesome, but Dubai was laughing so hard that he was out of breath. Because of the name, the hair on Debai's head was almost killed again. Finally, he admitted with tears in his eyes against his will that the name of the knife was extremely cool and awesome. She gazed at the man beside her with great pleasure. It felt different to wake up in his arms. When she thought about how she had not rejected him just now, her face became hot again. Seeing Jiu Liuxing sitting directly on the bed, she kicked him. When everyone heard Hua Qingquan's voice, they couldn't help but look towards the arena, only to see a young man walking out step by step from the pit on the arena, and getting closer and closer to their sight. Just at this moment, a siren sounded and a police car drove towards Huang Dala's taxi. After it stopped, four policemen got out and surrounded Huang Dala's car. Shi Jincheng returned to his original seat and sat down, still maintaining that sitting posture, lazy and compassionate. "Mom, what are you doing?" Qin Qianyu scolded her angrily and stopped her from taking Xia Ji's things again. Wei Baoder was shocked. What happened? Why was he jumping and running again? Could he really be ill? That's right, I heard it carefully, not a single word was wrong. Da Xiar said confidently. I forgot to tell you, the coffee is a little sweet. He put his lips close to hers, breathed hot air on her lips, and whispered. Their familiar figure was Shin Yusuzu, who had dropped his bath towel because of being frightened by Xing Chushin. At this moment, he was dressed in a white coat and walking towards a secluded staircase. Master Mo, perhaps the remaining clues have been destroyed by the king of the lost temple. Wu Qianxing said at this time. This scene made Su Yun's heart suddenly soften. She couldn't remember how long it had been since she saw a man being so gentle. Master. Lucky Yi's face looked very ugly. He could not resist the command of the command spell and could only obey Director Ken's order against his will. He tightly grasped the two long and short guns and attacked King Saber. Yiling shouted softly and pushed out the purple air on his left hand. In an instant, the purple air changed into various forms, with all kinds of wonders and mysteriousness. The level of magic tools and spiritual tools is relatively low, and they cannot be directly stored in the body. They are usually placed in the storage talisman and taken out by divine thoughts during battle. And those that are usually stored in the dantian for warming must be at least a higher level of magic tools, but magic tools can only be used when you reach the golden elixir stage. Fortunately, Master Qian is not in danger of his life, and Qingfeng Palace still has Elder Wuyin, a Jindan cultivator, so other sects should not turn against them easily. The four brothers of the Hua family are also independent cultivators in Yuling City. 2 of them are at the 9th level of Kaimai Realm, and 2 are at the 8th level of Kaimai Realm. They have a certain reputation among the low-level independent cultivators. Although they are not as famous as the 7 Ghost Brothers, they also have a lot of reputations. This can be found out from the discussions of the cultivators next to them. Yang Jiaojia was willing to spend such a huge amount of money for a red fox. Was she bewitched by the red fox? The air exhaled by Jiang Yuan blew on her body, causing her body to tremble involuntarily. Adding Jiang Yuan's words, "Take off your clothes," the atmosphere became even more ambiguous. After Shui Yinchan saw that scene, even if she loved the young master, she would still feel alienated from him. Of course, she wanted much more than that. Wu Dao just laughed off Nangong Hen's provocation. Then he turned back to the taxi, asked the driver for a toolbox, rolled up his sleeves, opened the hood, and started to modify the car with neat movements. The remaining cultivators could tell from the changes in expressions of these 3 people that what Bo Yi had just said was absolutely true. He could actually accurately tell the cultivation time of a cultivator. This was incredible. However, just as the 2 magic swords were about to hit his body, 2 streams of light suddenly appeared in the void behind Luo Ping, one from the left and one from the right, shooting towards the 2 magic swords respectively. Slow. When they heard Boss Qian say slow, the bandits thought Jiao Chong and his men were going to surrender, so they stopped again. Master, didn't you say that the contemporary emperor had died and no longer existed in the world? Why is this drop of imperial blood still emitting heat? Emperor Bichen said, trembling all over. Today, the Naylan family's headquarters is located in a mountain villa on the outskirts of Dalian. The villa covers a large area and has luxurious facilities including a racecourse, hunting grounds and a golf course. It was as if he wanted Xiao Yu to kneel down and then crush him. Xiao Yu tried his best to block it, but he was still shaking all over like a sieve. After a brief moment of shock, Liu Yu thanked him immediately, but she was curious. Didn't Jia Peiyuan go out to treat people to a meal? Why did he suddenly think of his own affairs? Chapter 25, 1 verses 3. Hey, where is the water and fire lion of our Yao family? Why is there no movement? When he said this, everyone was shocked. Trap stretched his body as far as he could the moment he landed and stretched out his right arm desperately to block the ball, but the angle was too tricky, and he watched in despair as the ball passed over his fingertips. Immediately arrange for someone to search that house. The murderer will definitely leave traces of stain overnight. After listening to my analysis, the captain immediately said to other colleagues. Romer was not drinking at the time. If someone wanted to attack her, they would definitely have a conflict with Romer. So how did Romer do? Thinking of this, Ding Cheng broke out in a cold sweat and didn't dare to think about it anymore. Lian stretched his head and looked at the cliff beside his feet. The cliff was not wide, but it was very high. If an ordinary genin fell down, with nothing to hold onto, the outcome would probably be death. He only knew how to release mental power. As for the magical skills, those were also stolen. Beller's angel wings, Tusang's thunder and lightning spirit, Holong's Hengshan finger and evolution spirit, and the Emperor's sword of the Emperor spirit. How is that possible? Hyuga Hayashi could swallow an elephant at this moment. He thought that he was already a genius to become the clan leader, but how long did it take him to learn the 128 palms of Bagua Palm? 20 years old. 22 years old. But acting still requires a full performance, so Lian continued speaking along with Tsunade's words, but he kept mentioning some chicken soup words in his speech. Being the crown prince is the most helpless thing. Lin Jingxing doesn't want his country to be trampled by people with ulterior motives, nor does he want to be a puppet emperor like his master, being restrained by the Lu family all his life and unable to move. God is really helping me. When he finishes his work and comes to find her, I don't know where she is hiding and having fun. What exactly is Nancheng? Cao Ji chose to expand the market and even expand his network there, but what about Li Jinger? She plans to leave Country C and go to Nancheng. What is she planning? Of course, he has the strength to pass through the dimensional cracks and dimensional seas and go to other worlds, but the entire world is under the cover of that red dragon, and he simply cannot get out through this means. Li Jinger sat in the passenger seat of the arrogant red Ferrari. The scenery ahead gradually blurred her eyes. She was too sleepy. Just when Jing Shui walked to the center, there was a sudden vibration from above and a muffled sound. In other words, unless you can break the rules of the small garden, forget about getting in-game benefits through informal channels. But who would be interested in these gifts if they have the ability to break the rules of the small garden? After saying so much, Mr. Huang, how do you plan to deal with me? Yi looked at Wang Junyu. This destroyed and revived demon dragon village has become a village that everyone looks up to. As long as Naiqian is alive, this ordinary village will be the existence of heaven. Huang Jun said, I know, because it is impossible for you to believe it, so naturally these things will not happen in your eyes. The argument woke up everyone in the carriage. The flight attendant rushed over and called the police to come over, but they didn't know what was going on for a while. She even felt that the phantom seemed to have merged into the room. At this moment, he became transparent, and his figure gradually faded. She rubbed her eyes carefully and looked over. The phantom was still sitting there with his eyes closed, and even his movements had not changed. She immediately felt very discouraged. Chen Jifan secretly compared her with Jiang Ruyan in his mind, and surprisingly found that even when they stood together, their ages didn't seem much different, and overall they looked like sisters. At this time, Wei Wuji Sorjing Dali, who he had left with the generals to keep an eye on, hurried over. Chen Feng withdrew his palm, and Ao Zheng and another person broke free. They still did not shout or run away, but clasped their fists respectfully, which was a sincere admiration for Chen Feng. He tried to flap his wings gently, and unexpectedly, with just a few flaps, his body easily left the ground. If the ceiling of this side hall was not too low, he would probably be able to fly a little higher. So the club got dozens of tickets and reserved them all for the members of the Chinese national team. After smoking 2 cigarettes in the parking lot, he did not drive away, but chose to take the elevator back to the president's office. The South Korean team also launched several attacks and had 3 shots in the following period, but Ma Juanqiang performed bravely, blocking high and low shots, and killed the South Korean team's hopes of saving face. But even so, the old guy still refused to surrender, and took out a Tarwas talisman from his pocket, trying to make a final resistance. But Tong Yang would not give him this opportunity, and stepped forward and kicked him directly in the chin. The old guy screamed and fainted on the spot. He and Jiu Dezhong easily climbed over the city wall. There were indeed not many people left, estimated to be only about 1,000. It sounds quite mysterious, but the fat man who had seen the blind old man's magic believed it without a doubt. After seeing some of his deeds, he also realized that the blind old man might be some kind of hidden senior who was guiding him because he saw that they had a connection. It doesn't matter, these are enough for me to eat. Lao Qin put almost everything in front of him except 2 bowls of instant noodles. Why was he still protecting the food? Chapter 26, Driven Out of the Mall. But then I thought, that's the altar of Yinyang Valley, except for Yuan Shen, no one else can use any spiritual power, so I felt that Tar Ying and Sister Li Luo had some relationship. As soon as I thought of this, I completely lost control and walked towards Tar Ying. By the time he could see the outline of the ravine, he could already feel an invisible hand dragging him. Hand-painted posters for the crew have always been a popular job in this industry. With an invisible master like Meng Fan, Qinju felt that it was not impossible to expand the illustration business to hand-painted posters. It was not necessary for Meng Fan to draw them himself, but his guidance was needed. Hu Ju searched for its space station server, and the color of the corridor immediately changed from colorful to dark blue. The only difference is that she now has the freedom to make friends, but she has developed a psychological trauma about friendship. The number of viewers in the live broadcast room now exceeds 500,000. This is because Meng Fan's live broadcast is down to earth and his voice is charming throughout. Many people were not originally fans of the live broadcast room, but were recommended by others, including many who came here specifically to listen to his voice while watching the show. The man's thin lips came down again, kissing her while hiding the dark color surging in his eyes. You know, when Nian Shi and the other 3 were discussing in this villa, what they were most worried about was that Feng Ziyi, the old stubborn man, would stand up to stop them, so they deliberately avoided him. Su Zai took the picture and started looking at it. Yu Xia looked at her deeply as he saw how focused she was, his gaze deep and lingering. If she remembered correctly, this period of time should be the time when Song Yanran's lover was sick. In her previous life, Song Yanran relied on him as a big tree to enjoy the shade. After viewing the first floor, return to the center of the living room and take the stairs to the second floor. The stairs are similar in style to the main entrance, and are curved. You can go up from both sides, like a pair of brackets, with the door leading to the back garden in the middle. The gate is currently under construction and cannot be passed through for the time being. The point is that there are more than one. Dai Lin looked solemn and took out another body of a male inheritor from the storage ring. It was the same situation. There are only 7 world trees in one world. Destroying one today is like breaking off a leg of the Machine Emperor world. This is a more serious blow than killing the Guardian. But please speak frankly and don't be polite. I'm all ears. Wu Weiye was serious and had no intention of backing down. You can sell almost all the treasures and skills that come from shady sources here with confidence. The Devil Pirates will not only keep the identities of the buyers and sellers confidential, but also provide them with comprehensive protection before they leave Devil Island. Even if you steal the imperial seal of an empire, you can find a buyer here. Xu Chen said that he came for the Taichu Dao Sutra of the Chendao sect, but if he made such a request directly, he would probably be expelled, let alone obtain the skills. At the same time, other powerful teams nearby also stopped advancing. The team leaders looked strangely at the inheritors of purification magic in the team, and the latter pointed to the front, indicating that they saw a giant black tree. But man proposes, God disposes. Wu Qin learned about the shocking changes in the beast farm from an ordinary passerby. With the help of Liu Yunhui, he arrived here 2 days in advance and captured 2 men of Quanlang by chance. When did it happen? She didn't expect that during the time they were apart, she actually had Jun Morshuan's child. She was immediately jealous, but she showed no emotion on the surface. I nodded hurriedly. If I don't eat, I'll starve to death. Ji Yuyan looked at me thoughtfully, shook her head and left without saying anything. I hurriedly followed her, carrying my wallet, and went downstairs. Well, we can't just go through the minefield and return the same way. I guess they have already set an ambush and are waiting for us. Lei said after thinking for a while. Just when Duanse was terrified, the communicator between him and his bodyguard suddenly rang. It turned out to be the leaders of the Blue Moon variety show who had lost contact before. They were all overjoyed. Although she felt sore all over and her limbs were weak, she still remembered everything that happened the night before bit by bit from under the quilt that still exuded a charming scent. The old man fell heavily to the ground, some blood slowly flowing through his eyes, his vision frozen on the ground for a moment, and then dimmed forever. When he looked up again, he felt a cool breeze. Mo Li had already used his lightness skills to disappear without even his shadow. Noticing that the wizard seemed to have some bad intentions, a Caesar pretended to move to Sanruor's side casually. Mo Wangchen glanced at her, said nothing more, picked up the beef noodles, stood up and changed seats again. What made me commit suicide and embark on the path of no return of setting up mysteries and hidden plots, focusing on supporting characters, and diluting the main character's role? The reason why I called you together today to open the ancestral temple and set up the incense altar is to tell you one thing. In my Qingmen, there is still an ancestor who is like a god who has never appeared in the world. You should all be more careful and not offend the ancestor. Du Duyue said lightly. The Butu Yuhuan hanging on the wall flew into his hand, and he walked straight out of the room and out of the villa. Su Muchan no longer hesitated. Except for the two airships, all other things were teleported to their previous locations through space. When Qin Miaoyu and her studio staff were busy at the wedding venue, they naturally met the people they had met at the Xiong family banquet before. She understood the prices in this world. If she did not consider cultivating immortals and just being an ordinary person, one spirit stone was about the same as $1 in the future world, and 2 spirit stones could buy a bun. Lu Qianan fell silent. The Qin family was obviously quite rich, but did Qin Miaoyu mean that she only used the money she earned? Jiang Yuan felt his whole body trembling as if struck by an electric current, and his hands unconsciously grabbed his black coat with more and more force. The Lord of Yuluo Palace released his own aura, and under the influence of that aura, Yi Muyan was instantly forced to retreat a few steps. As a result, the sisters lived with Fang Liniang. Although they were free from the beatings, scoldings and exploitation of the old Shen family, their lives were actually not good. The weight of their lives was not much different from before. As soon as Lu Qianan arrived at the hotel, he received a message from his cousin saying that Qin Miaoyu seemed a little depressed at the last moment. He quickly called her on video, but did not intend to mention Liang Xishuan's matter again. Below are the core members of Jingxiu Villa today. There are currently 57 of them. All of them have at least reached the great perfection of the Great Emperor realm, and most of them are at the first level of the Red Dust Fairyland. Chapter 27 News from the Factory. Everything went on as usual the next day, except that Yu Yi made 6 lunch boxes and took the children to school. On the other hand, the host of Wushuang City had given an incense stick of preparation time, so he must have considered all these things a long time ago. Unexpectedly, when she was struggling violently in her heart, fearing that the other party would utter words of denial. In this way, the production company, producer, director, and screenwriter are all present, and it naturally becomes the basic prototype of a premiere. Natal Beast, it is at the same level as the master, but can share life and magic power, so the natal beast must be an animal with the same magical attributes as its own. Can't I just collect some interest from them now? If they give me money again in the future, it won't be just this little bit. If it's less, they will feel that they have lowered their own value. That's right. Zhen Quan didn't know where his confidence came from. He was always full of hope for himself. Even if the person in front of him was the strongest in the world, he still maintained his most original confidence. Turning her head to look at the sincere Zhang Yao, Yun Moryu suddenly felt very strange towards him. Gradually, her eyes became a little blurry and her whole body became weak. His face seemed to be getting closer and closer. Sister, pinch me, am I dreaming? Luo Qianyi said blankly while looking at the sky. Although the player was angry, he did not dare to lose his temper. Here, his life and death were determined by others. Lu Jianting couldn't help but pull his collar. Cold sweat had already appeared on his back. He closed his eyes, took a few deep breaths, and left the office. Lin Haotsine pressed his fingers, signaling everyone to be quiet. To be honest, the general trend of the Hengxing Index was no longer under Lin Haotsine's control. At this time, Jiang Chengping and Ji Yu Shuiyu were still looking at Zhang Bei in confusion, their brain circuits had not yet reacted. If Yukoso Masaki is willing to cooperate with Zhuolefeng, she must also be honest, otherwise, Zhuolefeng's honesty will be unnecessary. You've been poisoned. Chen Yun had never been in the secular world and had always been practicing in the realm of cultivation. As a result, he didn't know too many new things about this world and was particularly surprised. But no matter how harshly he cursed, it was useless, because Fu Xing had already arrived in Shen City with his team. You decide this matter yourself. After all, Xu Haishui is not wrong, said the commander-in-chief. 10 minutes later, when Wu Dongyu and the old man arrived at the gate of compound number 5, they saw a taxi stopped. Remember, if you want to serve His Highness, you must first learn to put your curiosity under control. Don't ask questions, just do it. Yun Rong said seriously. Although Lin Yuan was not allowed to speak, Lin Chaonan talked a lot. He talked about their work in the hospital and this year's vocational examination. He intentionally or unintentionally hinted that Li Lufei should study theoretical knowledge well and try to get a place in the vocational examination. Now that I think about it, the so-called killing of the gangster was probably just an excuse to cover up his nature as a murderer. What's going on with Shiru? Why is she so depressed? Did you say something later that irritated her? Yang Shizhong asked after getting in the car. Yang Ruoli was a little touched, with tears in her eyes, but she didn't want to show it, so she quietly picked up a bun and ate it. The warm breath touched her face, but the man didn't kiss her in the end. He just kept the same distance and agreed. Feng Junyang already knew that she was no longer his elder sister, but he thought she was at least smart. He didn't expect her to be so stupid and use the same tricks to win favor in the harem. This time, he didn't even say a word, just looked at Queen Mother Feng with a mocking smile, and then turned and walked out of the palace. Luo Xian suddenly realized, and remembered that Qin Tong had mentioned his life experience to him when he was in the human world. He said that he was born in the thunder and lightning on the top of Mount Kunlun, as if he came from the sky. It turned out that he deserved the title. He really was a righteous god Zhao who came to the human world from the Kunran divine realm of the 107th heaven. Ao, how was the talk with Shimin going? Did she agree to a divorce? Shiru asked with a smile. Pianin, who was very good at observing people's words and expressions, how could he not notice that the moment he came in, the emperor's face showed a hint of worry and anxiety? Pianin understood this, but he did not dare to let the emperor wait too long at this time. Lin Feng activated the rogue's novice skill, Quick Step, and increased his speed by 5%, running towards the pit. This was a level 1 skill that rogues had when they were born and could not upgrade. Although it was not as good as the Wind Step, it was a rare advantage for a new rogue. Jiang Ziyin woke up when I made breakfast. He looked at the time and said that he had made an appointment with the school and would send her to kindergarten today. I'll invite you to join the guild so that you don't have to go to the guild management again. Suran said. The guild president has the power to invite any player to join the guild, and the other party does not need to go to the guild management office in person to apply for membership. It is very convenient. Of course Jianxi was willing, he also wanted to see what Pingshe and the others were eating. At this time, the 5 of them went directly to the cafeteria. But thinking of that, Wu Xiaoming's face suddenly turned red, because she thought of the embarrassing scene with Lin Feng last time. It was so embarrassing that she lowered her head and was embarrassed to look at Lin Feng. The branches that had withered and turned dark brown began to grow slowly again, and a touch of green representing life quickly extended. After a while, the plants on the windowsill became full of vitality again. By then, the dark energy within the Ancient One will completely erupt, and neither Patch nor Aureliana will survive. When Xu Chenxi sent someone to find him, he saw someone pushing the door in, and a panic expression flashed across his face. I'm sorry, I'm just a homeless person passing by, I'll leave right away. He deliberately lowered his voice, pretending to be a little vicissitudes of life, not wanting everyone to know that he was the powerful official who came back from the dead. Crystal clear water flowed down from between her fingers, as if she was holding a handful of stars, falling into the water continuously from her hands, sparkling with clean and pure starlight. Hearing the soldiers' shouts, Apagast, like most of the soldiers, subconsciously thought that they were the Hun's reinforcements, and the last bit of blood on his face was replaced by a paleness of despair and helplessness.